Welcome to the channel, Sleepy Documentary. You can settle in however you are, fully awake, a little tired, or already drifting at the edges. There is nothing you need to do here. Your breathing can slow on its own, in its own time. Your body can soften where it's ready to soften. Tonight, we're exploring the most relaxing facts about human evolution. The long, gradual story of how small changes over immense stretches of time shaped the bodies you now rest inside. Human evolution isn't a dramatic ladder or a straight line. It's a branching, patient process. It includes ancient fish with simple backbones, early mammals with warm blood and quiet fur, primates adapting to life in trees, and hominins walking upright across open landscapes. The facts we'll move through are real, grounded in fossils, genetics, and careful study, but we'll approach them gently. There's no need to hold every detail. Attention can wander. If you miss something, nothing is lost. Evolution itself unfolded slowly, with repetition and revision. If this kind of quiet exploration helps you unwind, you're welcome to like or subscribe. We'll move through small truths about bones that remember older shapes, about organs that shifted roles over time, about traits that were never designed, only adjusted. Nature rarely invents from nothing. It modifies what already exists. Old blueprints are revised, not discarded. Even now, traces of earlier forms remain within you not as flaws, but as history carried forward. And we can simply sit with that. Long before there were humans, there were vertebrates with simple spines drifting through ancient seas. The backbone did not begin as something meant for upright walking. It was a flexible rod, useful for swimming. Over time, segments formed, joints appeared, small modifications accumulated. Evolution rarely discards a structure once it works well enough. It reshapes it. The human spine still carries that early blueprint: stacked vertebrae, cushioning discs, a central cord, protected inside bone. When humans began to walk upright, the spine curved differently. It did not become a brand new structure. It adjusted. The gentle S-curve you carry today is a compromise between balance and stability. It works sufficiently well, not perfectly. Back pain is common. That, too, is part of the story. Evolution does not aim for flawlessness. It settles for function that allows survival and reproduction. The old aquatic design remains, quietly adapted to gravity and long strides across land. Even now, when you lie down and your spine rests against a mattress or chair, you are resting a structure that began in water hundreds of millions of years ago. The same segmented pattern exists in fish, in reptiles, in mammals, different forms, shared ancestry. Nature tends to revise rather than reinvent. The blueprint persists, softened and reshaped through time, and that persistence can feel steady. Another quiet fact rests in your hands. The bones of the human hand trace back to early tetrapods, four-limbed vertebrates that first stepped onto land. 5 digits became the standard pattern, not because 5 is ideal in some abstract sense, but because that early arrangement worked. It spread. It remained. Over time, those digits elongated, shortened, fused in some species, multiplied in others through modification. But the underlying plan endured. Bats stretch those digits into wings. Whales fold them into flippers. Horses reduce them to a single strong toe. Humans keep 5 flexible fingers capable of fine movement. The diversity appears wide, yet the skeletal pattern underneath is recognizable. 1 bone, 2 bones. Small wrist bones. Then, digits. A familiar sequence. Convergent evolution sometimes produces similar solutions in unrelated groups, wings in birds and bats, for example. But the human hand belongs to a deeper shared pattern among mammals. It is not newly invented. It is inherited and adjusted. That is often how evolution works. It begins with something sufficient, then modifies it gradually. When you curl your fingers, you are moving structures that once pressed against muddy shores in distant ages. The past is not dramatic here. It is anatomical, quietly embedded. The hand did not appear fully formed. It was shaped through incremental change, each step small enough to remain functional. And it continues to change, even now, in subtle genetic shifts across populations. Nothing sudden, nothing urgent, just slow revision. There is also the story of human breathing. Lungs did not begin in mammals. Early fish developed air-filled sacs to supplement oxygen intake in low-oxygen waters. Some of those sacs eventually evolved into lungs. Others became swim bladders. The distinction arose through gradual divergence. Again, evolution repurposed existing structures rather than inventing entirely new ones. The lungs inside your chest expand and contract without instruction from your conscious mind. The diaphragm moves. Ribs lift. Air flows. This system reflects ancient adaptations to fluctuating environments. When vertebrates transitioned fully onto land, those air sacs became essential. Over time, branching airways increased surface area. Blood vessels wove closely around them. Gas exchange became efficient enough to support warm-blooded metabolism in mammals. It is a long chain of adjustment. No foresight. No predetermined endpoint. Just incremental advantage, enough oxygen to move, to feed, to survive. You do not have to manage most of this. Even as you listen, breathing continues whether your attention drifts or not. The structure is old. The rhythm is steady. Evolution layered refinements onto earlier forms, preserving what functioned and trimming what did not. Nature is patient in that way. It keeps what works sufficiently well. Consider the human eye. It did not appear suddenly as a complex camera-like organ. Early light-sensitive cells offered simple advantages detecting brightness, distinguishing day from night. Over immense stretches of time, slight indentations formed, allowing directional sensing. Transparent coverings emerged. Lenses gradually focused light more precisely. At each stage, the structure remained usable. There was no leap from blindness to full vision, just gradations. Small improvements accumulating. The human eye still carries signs of this layered history. The retina is wired in a way that produces a blind spot where nerves exit the eye. It is not a perfect design. It is a modified one. Other lineages, such as cephalopods like octopuses, evolved eyes independently through convergent evolution. Their retinal wiring differs. Similar function, different history. Nature often arrives at workable solutions more than once, through separate paths. Your eyes, if open, are part of that mammalian lineage. If closed, they are resting structures shaped by countless prior forms. Evolution does not erase its drafts completely. It revises them. Even the small muscles that move your eyes reflect ancient coordination between brain and body. Complex, yet built step by step. And there is no requirement to hold all of that in focus. Vision itself fades easily into darkness. The system rests when needed. Finally, there is the quiet story of human warmth. Mammals are endothermic. We regulate our internal temperature. This trait evolved gradually from reptile-like ancestors. Feathers and fur emerged not originally for flight or display alone, but for insulation. Small proto-feathers likely helped retain heat. Later, in some lineages, they enabled flight. In others, fur thickened. Human hair is sparse compared to many mammals, yet it remains a trace of that insulating ancestry. Goosebumps still ripple across skin when cold or emotionally stirred. The tiny muscles that raise hair once fluffed dense fur for warmth or intimidation. Now they lift fine hairs that barely alter insulation. A vestige, not useless, but diminished. Evolution keeps remnants. It does not streamline everything away. Old features persist when they do not strongly hinder survival. Change is gradual and uneven. Some traits shift rapidly under pressure. Others linger for millions of years. Inside you, metabolic heat circulates steadily. Cells convert stored energy into motion and maintenance. This warm internal environment reflects a long history of adaptation. It is not perfect efficiency. It is workable balance. The broader pattern repeats existing structures modified, not discarded. Ancient blueprints adjusted, not replaced. Sufficient solutions favored over ideal ones. Convergent patterns appearing in distant branches of life. All of it unfolding slowly. And still unfolding now? There is a small bone at the base of your spine called the coccyx. It is sometimes called the tailbone. It does not extend outward in a visible tail the way it does in many other mammals. It sits quietly beneath muscle and skin, a compact reminder of earlier forms. Our distant primate ancestors had tails that helped with balance in trees. Over time, in the lineage that led toward apes and eventually humans, external tails shortened and disappeared. The underlying vertebrae did not vanish completely. They fused. They became smaller. They remained as a cluster of bones at the spine's end. Evolution did not remove the structure entirely. It adjusted it. That is often how change proceeds. When a feature becomes less necessary, it may shrink rather than dissolve. The blueprint is edited, not erased. The coccyx still anchors muscles. It still participates in posture. It is not meaningless. It is simply reduced from what it once was in earlier species. A quiet vestige. Sometimes, rarely. Human infants are born with small tail-like projections. These are developmental variations, brief echoes of a longer past. They do not represent a reversal. They are reminders that the genetic pathways for building a tail were once active and are still present in modified form. The body carries history not as a museum display, but as layered instructions shaped by time. Structures persist if they do not interfere too much with survival. Evolution aims for sufficiency. It does not refine endlessly toward elegance, and so the tailbone remains small, stable, unobtrusive. You do not need to feel it. It simply exists as part of a long continuum. Another quiet inheritance is found in your jaw. Early vertebrates did not have the 3 small bones that mammals use for hearing. Instead, they had jaw bones that helped with chewing and support. Over many generations, some of those bones gradually shifted roles. They became part of the middle ear. In mammals, the malleus, incus, and stapes transmit vibrations from the eardrum to the inner ear. These delicate bones evolved from structures that once functioned primarily in feeding mechanics, rather than inventing entirely new parts. Evolution repurposed existing ones. Nature often modifies available materials. It does not begin from nothing. A bone that once stabilized a jaw can, under gradual change, become a conductor of sound. This transition did not happen in a single step. Fossils show intermediate forms, jaws that carried both feeding and hearing roles. Over time, specialization increased. Hearing became more sensitive. Jaw structures became lighter and more refined. Inside your ears, those tiny bones continue to move with each vibration of air. They are ancient in origin, yet newly arranged in function. A recycled design, refined but recognizable in lineage. Across mammals, this pattern repeats. Bats, whales, mice, and humans share this same trio of middle ear bones. Different lives, different habitats, shared modification. It is steady. This way, evolution layers function upon function. No urgency, just gradual adjustment. Consider also the human pelvis. It reflects the balance between upright walking and childbirth. When early hominins began to walk on 2 legs, the pelvis changed shape. It became shorter and broader to support organs in a vertical posture. Muscles rearranged. The spine adjusted above it. At the same time, the size of the human brain gradually increased over evolutionary time. Larger brains required larger skulls at birth. The pelvis had to accommodate this. It became a compromise between efficient walking and safe delivery. It is not a perfect solution. Human childbirth can be difficult compared to many other mammals. This difficulty reflects the layered nature of evolutionary change. Upright posture evolved. Brain expansion followed. The body adapted as best it could within existing constraints. Evolution works with what is already there. It does not redesign the entire organism from the ground up. Trade-offs remain. Old blueprints limit what can easily shift. Yet, the pelvis functions. Walking is stable. Birth is possible. The balance holds sufficiently well for populations to persist. Across different human populations, small variations in pelvic shape exist. These reflect minor genetic drift and adaptation. Nothing dramatic, subtle shifts within a shared structure. When you sit or lie down, the pelvis supports you without effort. It is a central hinge in the human frame, shaped by millions of years of incremental change. The story is not one of perfection. It is one of workable balance. There is also the quiet continuity in your blood. Hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen, is deeply conserved across vertebrates. Its structure has changed slightly over time, but its essential role remains stable. Bind oxygen. Release it where needed. The molecular machinery inside your red blood cells reflects ancestry that predates mammals, predates reptiles, predates even the earliest land animals. The chemistry of oxygen transport emerged early and proved useful enough to keep. Genetic sequences vary slightly between species. Small mutations accumulate. Some versions bind oxygen more tightly, others less so. These differences reflect environmental pressures, altitude, temperature, lifestyle. Yet the core function persists. Evolution preserves molecular systems that work adequately. It tweaks them when conditions shift. It rarely discards an efficient solution entirely. Even now, within human populations, slight variations in hemoglobin genes influence oxygen affinity. These variations can confer advantages in high-altitude regions. Small differences, gradual adaptation. Inside you, blood flows steadily, carrying oxygen in a rhythm that echoes ancient oceans and early air-breathing vertebrates. The molecules themselves are quiet historians. There is no need to track their movement. They circulate whether noticed or not. And finally, there is the human brain itself. It did not appear fully formed in its current size or complexity. Early vertebrates possessed simple neural tubes. Over time, brain regions expanded, folded, specialized. The mammalian brain layered new structures over older ones. The cerebral cortex expanded significantly in primates. In humans, it grew further, allowing language, abstract thought, long-term planning. Yet beneath the cortex lie older regions, brainstem structures that regulate breathing and heart rate, limbic circuits involved in emotion and memory. These are not replaced. They are retained. Evolution builds upward and around existing systems. It does not remove foundational circuitry that continues to function. The result is a brain that contains multiple evolutionary layers operating together. Sometimes, these layers interact smoothly. Sometimes, they conflict. That, too, reflects history rather than flaw. Across species, similar patterns appear. Mammals share brain architectures with variations in scale and emphasis. Convergent evolution sometimes produces similar cognitive abilities in distant lineages, certain birds. For example, but through different neural arrangements. The human brain is not a singular invention. It is a continuation, expanded gradually from prior forms. Neurons, fire, signals, travel. Most of this occurs outside conscious awareness. Even as you listen, your brain filters sound, regulates posture, monitors internal states. You are not required to manage it. The structure is old. The modifications are layered. The process continues slowly, generation after generation. Evolution reshapes what exists. It tolerates imperfection. It preserves sufficiency. It leaves vestiges. It repeats patterns across distant branches of life. And all of this unfolds without urgency. Quietly, over time, there is a small muscle in your forearm called the palmaris longus. Not everyone has it. If you press your thumb and little finger together and flex your wrist, you may see a thin tendon rise at the center, or you may not. Its presence varies. In earlier primates, this muscle likely assisted with strong gripping and climbing. It supported life in trees, where grasping branches was constant and necessary. Over time, as human ancestors spent more time walking upright and less time suspending their weight from limbs, the muscle became less essential. It did not disappear completely. In many people, it remains. In others, it never forms. The absence does not impair daily life in any noticeable way. Surgeons sometimes use its tendon for grafts because removing it rarely causes functional loss. This is how evolution often proceeds. A structure that becomes less critical may gradually diminish. It may vary across individuals. It may linger quietly, without strong pressure, to remain or vanish. The body carries options from earlier chapters. Some are still fully engaged. Others rest in partial form. There is no dramatic transition here, just a slow easing of importance. Nature tends to keep what does not cost too much. Efficiency matters, but so does inertia. If a structure does not interfere significantly, it may persist for long stretches of time. And so, in some arms, the palmaris longus remains as a soft reminder of arboreal ancestry. Another quiet inheritance is found in the way human embryos develop. In early stages, human embryos display features that resemble those of other vertebrates. Small tail-like extensions, pharyngeal arches in the neck region, a curved posture. These features are not full expressions of ancestral forms, but they reflect shared developmental pathways. Genes that once guided the formation of gill-supporting structures in fish now guide the development of jaw, ear, and neck components in mammals. The underlying instructions are modified, not erased. Development proceeds through layered signals. Certain genes activate early patterns. Later genes refine them. Over time, evolution has adjusted these sequences, adding steps, altering timing, modifying expression levels. The early embryo does not pass through adult stages of other species. That older idea has been simplified over time. Instead, embryos reflect common ancestry through shared developmental building blocks. The same genetic toolkit appears across vertebrates, reshaped for different outcomes. This is a recurring theme. Evolution does not draft entirely new blueprints for each lineage. It edits shared ones. You do not remember your own embryonic stage, and you do not need to. The process unfolded quietly before memory. It still unfolds in similar ways in each new generation. Gradual change, layered over ancient instructions. That layering continues in subtle ways, even within the structure of your skin. Human skin carries traces of mammalian ancestry in the form of body hair and tiny muscles called erector pili. When you feel cold or emotionally stirred, those muscles contract, raising hairs slightly. In animals with thick fur, this response increases insulation or makes the animal appear larger. In humans, with comparatively sparse body hair, the effect is minimal. Goosebumps rise, but warmth does not significantly increase. The mechanism persists, though its original purpose has softened. Again, evolution modifies rather than redesigns. The system remains because it does not impose a strong disadvantage. It simply does less than it once did in heavily furred ancestors across mammals. This response appears in varied forms. Cats fluff their fur. Porcupines raise quills. The shared muscle pattern underlies these displays. In humans, it is quieter, a subtle ripple across the skin. Vestiges are not errors, they are historical layers. They reflect that change is gradual and often uneven. Some traits become central, others fade gently at the edges, and none of this demands attention to function properly. Skin regulates temperature, repairs itself, senses pressure and warmth without requiring conscious management. The system runs steadily in the background. Consider also the way humans perceive color. The ability to see a wide range of colors depends on photoreceptor cells in the retina. Most mammals are dichromatic, meaning they have two types of color-sensitive cones. Humans, along with some other primates, are typically trichromatic. This shift toward richer color vision likely emerged in primates that relied on distinguishing ripe fruit from foliage. A small genetic mutation produced a new cone type, sensitive to slightly different wavelengths of light. That variation proved useful. It spread gradually. Not all mammals share this capacity. Some have different visual strengths, better night vision. For example, evolution shapes perception according to ecological needs. Yet, even here, the change was not a complete reinvention of the eye. It was a modification of existing photoreceptor genes, a duplication, a divergence, a subtle adjustment. Color vision in humans is not flawless. Some individuals are colorblind due to variations in those same genes. The system allows flexibility and variation. Evolution does not aim for universal uniformity. It tolerates diversity when it does not significantly hinder survival. As you rest, whether your eyes are open or closed, those photoreceptors remain ready to respond to light. Their origins trace back through primate ancestors, and further still to simple light-sensitive cells in early animals, layer upon layer. Finally, there is the quiet fact of human bipedalism. Walking on two legs distinguishes humans from most other mammals, yet it did not arise as a sudden transformation. Fossil evidence suggests that early hominins began experimenting with upright posture millions of years ago while still retaining climbing abilities. The spine curved gradually. The pelvis broadened. The angle of the femur shifted inward toward the knee, allowing balance over a single supporting leg. Feet developed arches to absorb shock and store energy during each step. These changes accumulated over long periods. Some species walked upright more efficiently than others. Some retained mixed locomotion. Even now, the human body reflects compromise. The lower back can experience strain. Knees bear weight in ways that reflect layered adaptation. The foot retains bones that once grasped branches but now stabilize strides. Bipedalism freed the hands for carrying, tool use, gesturing. It also introduced new structural demands. Evolution did not predict language or technology. It adjusted posture in response to ecological conditions. Later capacities built upon that shift. This is another recurring pattern. One change opens space for others. Yet each step remains grounded in what already exists. When you stand, if you stand, you balance atop structures shaped through gradual trial and retention. When you lie down, those same structures rest. There is no urgency in their design, only sufficiency across time. Evolution modifies existing frameworks. It preserves what functions well enough. It leaves traces of earlier forms. It sometimes arrives at similar solutions in different lineages. It proceeds without foresight, guided only by survival across generations. And all of that continues quietly, whether noticed or not. There is a reflex that sometimes appears when something moves quickly toward your face. Your eyelids close before you consciously decide to close them. The signal travels along neural pathways that are older than deliberate thought. The brainstem coordinates the motion. Muscles contract. The eyes protect themselves. This reflex did not begin with humans. It is shared widely among vertebrates. Quick protective responses are useful in many environments. An animal that shields its eyes from debris or sudden impact is slightly more likely to preserve vision. Over long stretches of time, that slight advantage matters. The circuitry is layered. Sensory input, rapid processing, motor output. No internal narration required. The human brain did not replace these older reflex arcs when the cortex expanded. It kept them. New layers formed over older ones. Voluntary control grew more refined, but automatic responses remained intact. Even now, many processes in your body operate below awareness. Heart rate adjusts. Pupils constrict or widen. Hormones circulate in response to light and time of day. These systems reflect ancient regulatory networks that predate conscious reasoning. Evolution does not dismantle working systems when adding complexity. It integrates them. The older parts continue to function steadily beneath newer capacities. You are not required to monitor them. They are sufficient on their own. There is also the quiet story of human teeth. The human mouth contains incisors for cutting, canines that are modest compared to those of other primates, and molars for grinding. This general pattern is shared among many mammals, though proportions vary. Early mammals were small and likely omnivorous. Their teeth reflected flexibility in diet. Over time, different lineages specialized. Some developed large canines for predation. Others flattened molars for plant material. Human dentition sits somewhere in between. It reflects an adaptable diet. The jaw itself has changed over evolutionary time, as cooking and tool use softened food. Jaw size gradually reduced. Teeth, however, did not always shrink at the same rate. This mismatch sometimes leads to crowding of teeth in modern humans. Wisdom teeth, the third molars, often lack space to emerge comfortably. They are remnants of a time when larger jaws accommodated tougher diets. Again, evolution works incrementally. Cultural shifts, like cooking, can change selective pressures more quickly than anatomy adjusts. The blueprint lags slightly behind new habits. Wisdom teeth are not useless in all cases. In some individuals, they erupt without issue. In others, they remain impacted. Variation persists. The pattern is not one of flaw, but of timing. Biological change unfolds gradually. Environmental shifts can move at different speeds. The teeth you carry are part of a lineage stretching back through mammalian ancestors who navigated diverse diets and habitats, and they rest quietly most of the time, unless called upon. Another layer of inheritance appears in the way humans respond to stress. The so-called fight-or-flight response involves hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Heart rate increases. Muscles prepare for action. Blood flow shifts. This system evolved in environments where immediate physical threats were common. A rapid surge of energy could mean escape from a predator or defense of territory. The mechanism is ancient among vertebrates. In modern contexts, the triggers may differ. The body can respond to abstract stressors' deadlines, social evaluation with the same physiological pattern. The circuitry does not distinguish sharply between physical and psychological challenge. Evolution shaped a response that was sufficient for survival in earlier settings. It persists because it remains broadly useful, even if sometimes activated in situations that do not require sprinting or fighting. Over time, humans have developed cultural practices, breathing exercises, social support, routines that help regulate this system. Yet the biological framework remains deeply rooted. It is not an error. It is a continuation. The stress response is part of a larger regulatory network that balances alertness and rest. Parasympathetic systems counteract sympathetic arousal. Heart rate slows. Digestion resumes. These balancing mechanisms are also ancient. They evolved together, adjusting to maintain internal stability. You do not need to orchestrate them consciously. They move in cycles, like tides, across species. Similar stress responses appear with variations in intensity and duration. The underlying chemistry is widely shared. Old pathways persist because they continue to function well enough. There is also the quiet continuity in human sleep. The need for sleep is not uniquely human. It is widespread across animals, though patterns vary. Some mammals sleep in short bursts, others in longer cycles. Human sleep architecture includes stages light sleep, deeper slow-wave sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep. These patterns reflect brain activity shifts that likely evolved gradually alongside increasing neural complexity. REM sleep appears in many mammals and even birds. Its exact evolutionary origin remains under study, but it is not new in humans. It is part of a broader vertebrate pattern. Sleep supports memory consolidation, cellular repair, metabolic balance. These functions evolved because they offered survival advantages. Organisms that rested effectively could maintain neural systems more efficiently. Evolution did not eliminate sleep, even though it introduces vulnerability. Instead, it shaped protective behaviors, group sleeping, safe nesting, social vigilance. The human brain cycles through sleep stages without instruction. Even when you try to stay awake, biological rhythms influence alertness. Circadian rhythms, governed partly by light-sensitive cells in the eye and a region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, regulate daily cycles. These rhythms are deeply conserved across life forms. Even simple organisms exhibit periodic biological patterns. The molecular clock inside your cells ticks in roughly 24-hour cycles, guided by gene expression, feedback loops. This timing system evolved long before artificial lighting. It continues quietly now. Finally, there is the shared pattern of facial muscles. Humans possess a wide range of subtle facial expressions. Many of these movements are rooted in mammalian ancestry: raising eyebrows, baring teeth, narrowing eyes. These gestures reflect communication systems that predate language. In other primates, similar expressions signal dominance, submission, curiosity, alarm. The musculature differs slightly in emphasis, but the basic arrangement is comparable. Over time, human social complexity likely shaped refinements in facial control. Muscles around the eyes and mouth allow nuanced expression, yet the foundational pattern was already present. Evolution built upon existing communicative structures rather than inventing entirely new systems from scratch. Vocalization evolved alongside facial cues, gesture layered over posture. Convergent evolution has produced expressive faces in other social mammals as well. Dogs, through domestication, have developed eyebrow movements that resemble human expressions, facilitating cross-species communication. Different lineage, similar solution. Nature often finds workable forms more than once. Your face rests when neutral. Muscles soften. Expression fades. The system does not require constant engagement. Across all these layers, reflexes, teeth, stress hormones, sleep cycles, facial muscles, the same quiet themes return. Existing structures modified, old blueprints adjusted, vestiges retained, sufficiency favored over perfection, gradual shifts across immense time, and through it all, the body continues steadily, whether fully awake, lightly tired, or already drifting toward sleep. There is a small fold of tissue at the inner corner of your eye, called the plica semilunaris. It is subtle. Most people rarely notice it. It does not move dramatically. It rests there, quiet and pink, beside the white of the eye. In some animals, birds, reptiles, many mammals, a structure called the nictitating membrane sweeps across the eye like a translucent third eyelid. It protects the surface while preserving some vision. It can clear debris. It can moisten. Humans do not have a functional third eyelid. But we do have this small fold. It is a reduced remnant of that earlier structure. Evolution did not fully erase the membrane. It diminished it. The genetic instructions for building eye tissues were modified over time, gradually shifting toward other protective mechanisms: blinking, tear production, eyelashes. The plica semilunaris does not interfere with vision. It does not contribute much either. It simply remains. This is one of the gentler ways evolution leaves traces behind, not as dramatic features, but as softened outlines. Across mammals, similar reductions appear. Structures that were once central become peripheral, not harmful enough to disappear, not useful enough to remain prominent. Old designs persist quietly when they do not demand removal. The body is not engineered fresh each generation. It is inherited and revised, layer by layer. There is also the quiet story of human shoulders. The human shoulder joint allows a wide range of motion rotation, lifting, throwing. This flexibility traces back to arboreal ancestors who moved through trees, hanging, reaching, stabilizing their weight above ground. The scapula, or shoulder blade, sits relatively flat along the back in humans. In quadrupedal mammals, it often rests more along the side of the rib cage. The orientation shifted gradually as posture changed. Early primates benefited from mobile shoulders. Swinging between branches required rotation and flexibility. Those same anatomical arrangements later enabled tool use, precise throwing, and complex gestures in humans. Evolution did not foresee throwing spears or tossing balls. It preserved shoulder mobility because it served immediate needs in earlier environments. Later behaviors built upon that foundation. The shoulder is not perfectly stable. It sacrifices some stability for mobility. Dislocations can occur more easily than in more constrained joints like the hip. Again, this reflects trade-offs. Evolution aims for adequacy within constraints. A joint that moves widely may accept a bit more vulnerability. Across different lineages, forelimbs have been modified in diverse ways. Whales transformed them into flippers. Bats elongated fingers into wings. Horses reduced them for efficient running. Convergent evolution appears in the wings of bats and birds, but their structural origins differ. In mammals like bats, elongated digits stretch membranes. In birds, feathers and fused digits form airfoils. The human arm retains its grasping ancestry. When your arms rest at your sides, they carry that layered history without effort. Another quiet inheritance lies within the human digestive tract. The human appendix is a small, tube-like structure attached to the large intestine. For a long time, it was considered functionless. More recent research suggests it may play a role in immune function and maintaining gut bacteria. In herbivorous mammals, larger cecums help digest cellulose from plant matter. In human ancestors with different diets, the digestive system gradually adjusted. As cooking increased and diets diversified, some structures changed in size. The appendix may be a reduced remnant of a larger ancestral digestive chamber. Not useless, not central. Evolution does not always eliminate reduced structures entirely. It reshapes them, sometimes finding secondary functions. Across mammals, appendices vary widely in size and presence. Some species lack them entirely. Others have large, active cecal chambers. The human digestive tract reflects omnivory, moderate length, balanced enzyme production, cooperative gut microbiota. Even within the human population, microbial communities differ slightly, adapting to diet and geography. Evolution operates not only on the human genome, but also on the symbiotic organisms within. Your digestion unfolds steadily, without conscious guidance. Muscles contract in waves. Enzymes break down nutrients. Bacteria assist. Ancient mechanisms, modified gradually and steady. There is also the subtle continuity in human vocal anatomy. The human larynx sits lower in the throat compared to many other primates. This positioning allows a wider range of vowel sounds, contributing to speech complexity. The descent of the larynx occurred gradually in the hominin lineage. It did not arise fully formed. Fossil evidence suggests incremental changes in the shape of the hyoid bone and vocal tract. Other mammals produce a range of sounds, but the human vocal tract supports nuanced articulation. Still, the underlying structures, vocal cords, lungs pushing air, tongue shaping sound, are inherited from deeper mammalian ancestry. Speech is layered atop breathing. Language builds upon exhalation. Evolution did not create a separate organ exclusively for speech. It modified breathing and swallowing structures to allow additional control. This introduced trade-offs. The lowered larynx increases the risk of choking compared to many other mammals. Again, sufficiency over perfection across species. Convergent evolution has produced complex vocal communication in birds and whales, different anatomical solutions, similar functional outcomes. Nature often arrives at communication more than once. When you speak, or when you remain silent, your vocal tract rests in readiness. The system does not strain to exist. It simply is. Finally, there is the quiet fact of human skin pigmentation. Variations in melanin levels across human populations reflect adaptation to different levels of ultraviolet radiation. In regions with intense sunlight, higher melanin levels protect against UV damage and help preserve folate levels in the body. In regions with lower sunlight, lighter pigmentation facilitates vitamin D synthesis. These changes occurred gradually as human populations migrated across continents. Small genetic variations accumulated. Selection favored traits that balanced environmental pressures. The underlying biological machinery, melanin production, within specialized cells called melanocytes, is shared across humanity. Differences lie in degree, not in fundamental structure. Evolution adjusts within a common blueprint. It does not create entirely separate designs for each population. It modifies gene expression levels, enzyme activity, regulatory sequences. The variation in human skin tone reflects adaptation layered upon shared ancestry. Across other species, pigmentation shifts in response to environment appear repeatedly. Convergent evolution shapes camouflage, signaling, heat regulation. The pattern repeats gradual change, local adjustment, inherited frameworks. And throughout these quiet stories, the fold at the eye, the shoulder's arc, the appendix's small curve, the vocal tract's descent, the gradient of skin tone, the same themes remain. Existing structures modified, vestiges carried forward, trade-offs accepted, convergent solutions emerging in different branches of life, evolution working slowly, without urgency, sufficient, layered, ongoing. There is a quiet rhythm in the way your heart formed. In very early vertebrate embryos, the heart begins as a simple tube. It pulses before it has chambers. It bends. It folds. Over time, walls form within it, dividing flow into coordinated paths. In mammals, including humans, this process results in 4 chambers, 2 atria, 2 ventricles separating oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. The 4-chambered heart did not appear all at once. Earlier vertebrates, such as fish, have 2 chambers. Amphibians typically have 3. Reptiles show intermediate patterns with partial separation. In the lineage leading to birds and mammals, more complete division emerged. This separation supports higher metabolic rates. Warm-blooded animals require efficient oxygen delivery. The heart adjusted gradually to meet those needs. Evolution did not design a heart from scratch for mammals. It modified an existing circulatory pump, refining internal partitions over immense time. Even now, during embryonic development, the human heart briefly reflects aspects of this shared ancestry, a tube that twists, then compartmentalizes, not as a replay of history, but as a reflection of shared developmental roots. When you rest, your heart continues its steady contractions. It does not require supervision. It beats through waking and sleep, through attention and distraction. The structure inside your chest carries a long memory of earlier forms, not dramatically, just structurally. There is also the quiet story of human balance. Inside your inner ear are small, fluid-filled canals, semicircular canals arranged at roughly right angles to one another. They detect rotational movement of the head. Alongside them sit tiny structures called otolith organs that sense linear acceleration and gravity. This system is not uniquely human. It is shared across vertebrates. Fish have comparable balance organs adapted to aquatic environments. As vertebrates moved onto land, these structures adjusted to new conditions: air instead of water, upright posture instead of buoyancy. The arrangement of canals reflects 3-dimensional space. Movement in any direction can be detected through fluid displacement and hair cell activation. Evolution did not invent a new sense for humans. It refined an ancient equilibrium system to function in terrestrial life and upright walking. Occasionally, this system misfires. Spinning too quickly can overwhelm it. Motion sickness can arise when visual input and vestibular signals conflict. Again, this reflects sufficiency, not flawlessness. The system works well enough in most conditions encountered during evolutionary history. Roller coasters and virtual reality are newer than the pathways that process balance. Across mammals, birds, reptiles, similar vestibular patterns appear. Different proportions, shared design logic. Your sense of balance adjusts quietly as you shift position. Even now, If you tilt your head slightly, fluid moves within those canals, and signals travel toward the brain. You do not have to think about it. It is steady beneath awareness. There is the quiet persistence of the human immune system, the adaptive immune response involving specialized cells that recognize specific pathogens evolved in early jawed vertebrates. Before that, organisms relied primarily on more generalized defense systems. Invertebrates. Immune cells, called lymphocytes, developed the ability to rearrange segments of DNA to produce diverse receptors. This innovation allowed organisms to respond to a wide variety of infections with targeted precision. Humans inherited this system. The genes that shuffle and recombine in developing immune cells are ancient. They have been modified over time, fine-tuned for efficiency, but their fundamental strategy remains. Evolution did not craft a new immune system exclusively for humans. It preserved and elaborated an existing one. The immune response is not perfect. It can overreact. As in allergies or autoimmune conditions, it can underperform. Yet overall, it provides a flexible defense that has supported vertebrate survival for hundreds of millions of years. Across species, similar immune architectures appear, with variations in detail. Fish, reptiles, mammals all share core components. Inside you, immune cells circulate continuously. They sample, recognize, remember. Most of this unfolds silently. You are not required to monitor it. It proceeds in cycles, adjusting to environment and exposure. Another quiet continuity is found in the human sense of smell. Olfactory receptors are proteins embedded in the membranes of specialized neurons within the nasal cavity. Humans possess hundreds of different olfactory receptor genes, though fewer than some other mammals, such as dogs. These receptor genes form one of the largest gene families in the vertebrate genome. Over time, gene duplications occurred. Some copies diverged, allowing detection of new chemical compounds. Others became non-functional pseudogenes. Evolution modifies through duplication and variation. A gene copies itself. One copy maintains its original function. The other is free to accumulate mutations. Sometimes those mutations produce useful new sensitivities. In humans, many olfactory genes have become inactive compared to other mammals. This likely reflects reduced reliance on smell relative to vision and social communication. Yet the basic architecture persists. Air enters the nose. Molecules bind to receptors. Signals travel to the brain. Memory and emotion intertwine with scent. Across mammals, similar olfactory systems exist with different emphases. In rodents, smell plays a larger behavioral role. In humans, it is subtler, but still present. Convergent evolution has shaped chemical sensing in insects and other organisms, though through different molecular systems. The need to detect environmental cues appears repeatedly across life. Your sense of smell may fade into the background until a particular scent draws attention. Most of the time, it rests quietly. And finally, there is the gentle story of human fingerprints. The ridged patterns on your fingertips begin forming in the womb. They arise through interactions between genetic instructions and local physical forces in the developing skin. Slight variations in growth rates and pressure produce loops, whorls, arches. Fingerprints are not unique to humans. Other primates possess friction ridges as well. These patterns improve grip by increasing surface contact and channeling moisture away. Evolution did not create fingerprints for identification. It shaped textured skin surfaces because they enhanced grasping ability in primate ancestors navigating branches. Later, humans found additional uses for these patterns: identity verification, forensic analysis, but their origin lies in simple physical advantage. The ridges form through a combination of inherited genetic tendencies and minor random fluctuations in development. No two sets are identical, even among identical twins. This reflects another principle of evolution. Variation arises naturally. Selection acts upon variation, but some differences persist neutrally. Your fingertips rest now, perhaps lightly touching fabric or air. The ridges are present whether used actively or not. Across all these quiet systems, the heart's chambers, the balance organs, immune cells, olfactory receptors, fingerprints, familiar themes continue to surface. Existing structures reshaped, gene duplications adjusted, vestiges softened, shared ancestry visible in subtle forms, convergent solutions appearing in different branches of life, evolution proceeding without haste, not aiming for ideal form, only sufficient continuity. And the continuity holds. Quietly, there is a slow story in the bones of your feet. The human foot contains 26 bones, arranged in arches that distribute weight and store elastic energy. When you take a step, the arch compresses slightly, then releases. Tendons stretch and recoil. The movement is economical, though not effortless. Long ago, primate ancestors had feet more suited for grasping branches. The big toe was more mobile, able to oppose the others. As certain hominin lineages spent more time walking upright on the ground, the foot gradually changed. The big toe aligned with the others. The arch became more pronounced. Bones thickened in response to weight-bearing. This transformation did not occur all at once. Fossil footprints, preserved in volcanic ash millions of years ago, show intermediate patterns upright walking, combined with subtle differences from modern human gait. Evolution modified an existing primate foot rather than designing a new structure from nothing. The bones were reshaped, the ligaments reinforced, the toes shortened, yet traces remain. The basic pentadactyl pattern, 5 digits, persists. The small toe still mirrors the ancestral arrangement, though reduced in roll. The foot is not flawless. Flat feet, high arches. Stress fractures these variations reflect the tension between inherited structure and modern environments. Walking long distances on hard, flat surfaces is not identical to moving across varied terrain. Still, the system functions sufficiently. It supports standing, walking, running. When you are still, the feet rest quietly at the base of a long evolutionary path. They carry history without speaking. There is also the gentle continuity in the human ribcage. Ribs protect vital organs, heart, lungs, and assist in breathing. This bony cage is shared across vertebrates with internal skeletons. Fish have rib-like structures. Reptiles expand their rib cages differently. Mammals developed a diaphragm to assist with respiration, refining how ribs and muscle coordinate. The rib cage in humans is relatively barrel-shaped compared to that of quadrupedal mammals. This reflects upright posture and altered muscle arrangement. Breathing involves both the ribs and the diaphragm. When you inhale, the diaphragm contracts and moves downward, while ribs expand outward. Air flows in. The diaphragm itself evolved from muscle tissues that separated thoracic and abdominal cavities in early tetrapods. Over time, its coordination with rib movement became more efficient in mammals. Evolution did not replace gill arches with lungs in a single leap. It layered respiratory adaptations gradually, from aquatic to terrestrial life. Even now, your ribcage moves rhythmically, whether you attend to it or not. The structure is ancient in concept, modified in form. Across species, rib patterns vary in number and curvature, but the protective function remains, a framework of bone surrounding soft tissue. Steady. There is the quiet inheritance of human hair patterns. Humans have far less body hair than many other mammals, yet the follicles remain distributed across most of the skin. In evolutionary terms, reduction of dense fur likely occurred gradually as early humans adapted to warmer climates and increased sweating capacity. Sweat glands, especially eccrine glands, are abundant in humans. They allow cooling through evaporation. As fur thinned, sweating became more effective. This combination may have supported endurance activity in hot environments. Hair did not disappear entirely. It changed in density and distribution. The scalp retains thicker hair, possibly offering protection from sunlight. Eyelashes and eyebrows protect the eyes from debris and sweat. Again, modification rather than removal. The genetic instructions for hair growth remain active, though expression varies across individuals and populations. Across mammals, hair takes many forms: thick fur, quills, whiskers. In marine mammals, it is greatly reduced. The underlying biological machinery is shared. Humans sit somewhere along that continuum. Vestiges persist, adaptations layer. When you feel a faint breeze against your skin, the remaining hairs respond slightly, barely visible, a trace of insulation in a species that shifted toward heat management through sweating. Another quiet pattern lies in the structure of human hands compared to other primates. The human thumb is proportionally longer relative to the fingers than in many apes. This allows precise grip holding small objects, manipulating tools, writing. The opposable thumb itself predates humans. It appeared in earlier primates, but subtle shifts in bone length and joint shape enhanced fine motor control in the human lineage. This was not a dramatic transformation. Small anatomical differences accumulated. Muscles and tendons adjusted. Tool use likely reinforced selection for precision grip, but the foundation was already present. Evolution builds upon what exists. It does not invent grasping from nothing. It refines across different species. Convergent evolution has produced dexterous appendages, the raccoon's sensitive paws, the octopus's flexible arms through entirely different anatomical paths. Function emerges more than once. The human hand reflects both shared primate ancestry and lineage-specific adjustment. When your fingers rest loosely, they retain that quiet capability, ready, but not required to act. And there is the long continuity of human vision at night. Humans are not specialized for extreme nocturnal life, yet the retina contains rod cells that function in low light. Rods are more numerous than cone cells. They detect brightness rather than color. Early vertebrates likely depended heavily on such light-sensitive cells for survival in dim environments. Over time, photoreceptor systems diversified. The balance between rods and cones varies across species. Owls possess adaptations for night hunting. Cats reflect light through a structure called the tapetum lucidum. Humans lack that reflective layer, but retain sufficient rods for twilight vision. Again, sufficiency over specialization. The human eye represents a compromise capable in daylight, functional at dusk, not optimized for either extreme. The retina's structure reflects ancient layering photoreceptors at the back, neurons processing signals before sending them to the brain. Not a flawless arrangement, just a workable one inherited and retained. Across these quiet structures, the arches of the foot, the ribs and diaphragm, the thinning of hair, the refined thumb, the rods of the retina, familiar themes continue to return. Evolution modifies existing frameworks. Old blueprints remain visible in new forms. Vestiges linger without urgency. Trade-offs persist without correction. Convergent solutions appear in distant branches of life. Change moves gradually, sometimes unevenly, and the body you inhabit carries all of it calmly. No fanfare, just continuity across time. There is a quiet story in the curve of the human skull. If you were to look at the skulls of earlier hominins, you would notice gradual shifts rather than sudden changes. The forehead becomes more vertical over time. The brow ridge softens. The cranial vault expands. These transitions unfold across many generations. Brain size increased in the human lineage, though not in a straight line. Some species had larger brains relative to body size than others. The skull adapted incrementally to accommodate these changes. Sutures, the fibrous joints between skull bones, allowed flexibility during birth and room for growth during early development. The skull is not a single solid piece of bone formed all at once. It is assembled from multiple plates that fuse gradually. This modular design reflects deep vertebrate ancestry. In fish and reptiles, skull bones are also arranged in segments, sometimes more numerous than in mammals. Evolution did not invent a new container for the human brain. It reshaped existing cranial architecture. Bones shifted position. Some fused, others reduced. The foramen magnum, the opening where the spinal cord enters the skull, moved more centrally underneath as upright posture became established. This allowed the head to balance more directly atop the spine. Even small changes in position matter across time. Yet, the skull remains a compromise. It protects the brain while allowing passage for nerves, blood vessels, air, food. It carries history in its contours, and it rests quietly when supported by pillow or chair. There is also the gentle continuity in the human hand's sensory system. Beneath the skin of your fingertips are specialized receptors that detect pressure, vibration, and texture. These mechanoreceptors are not uniquely human. They are part of a broader vertebrate sensory toolkit. In primates, tactile sensitivity became particularly important for grasping branches and selecting food. Over time, neural representation of the hands expanded in the brain's sensory cortex. The famous homunculus diagrams that map body parts onto cortical space show disproportionately large areas devoted to hands and lips. This reflects functional importance, not literal size. Evolution did not create a new sense organ. It amplified neural processing devoted to structures that were already present. Across mammals, tactile specialization appears in different forms. Cats have whiskers rich in nerve endings. Moles possess highly sensitive snouts. Raccoons use their paws to explore underwater environments. Convergent evolution shapes sensitivity according to ecological needs. Even when anatomical paths differ, human touch is neither the most acute nor the most specialized in the animal kingdom. It is sufficient for tool use, social contact, environmental interaction. When your hands are still, receptors continue to respond faintly to temperature and contact. Quiet signals, traveling without demand. Another steady inheritance lies in human milk. Mammals are defined in part by mammary glands that produce milk for offspring. This adaptation likely evolved from skin glands in early synapsids. Distant ancestors of mammals. Milk composition varies across species, some richer in fat, others in protein, reflecting differences in growth rate and environment. Human milk contains antibodies that support immune development, along with nutrients balanced for relatively slow maturation. The act of lactation is not an invention of humans. It is a deep mammalian trait. The structure of the mammary gland, the hormonal regulation of milk production, the reflex that releases milk, these systems are widely shared. Evolution did not design a feeding strategy anew for each species. It modified a foundational plan. The parental investment patterns associated with mammals extended care. Social bonding likely co-evolved with lactation. Across mammals, care varies in duration and intensity. Humans tend toward prolonged dependency, reflecting both brain development and social complexity. Yet the biological framework is ancient. Milk flows through ducts shaped by countless prior generations, a continuation rather than a novelty. There is also the quiet presence of the human chin. Among living primates, a pronounced chin is distinctive to Homo sapiens. Earlier, hominins lacked the same projection. The evolutionary origin of the chin remains debated. It may relate to structural reinforcement of the jaw as faces shortened. It may reflect subtle developmental shifts. What is clear is that it emerged gradually. Fossil records show incremental changes in jaw shape and dental arch curvature. Evolution does not always produce traits for a single clear function. Some features arise as byproducts of other structural adjustments. The chin may not have been directly selected for in isolation. It may reflect a rearrangement of forces in a shrinking face and expanding brain case. This, too, is common. Traits can appear as side effects of deeper shifts. Not everything has a singular purpose. The human face, with its flattened profile compared to other primates, reflects dietary, social, and developmental influences layered together. The chin rests beneath the mouth, subtle and unassuming, a small contour shaped by long processes, and finally, there is the quiet continuity of human social bonding. The neurochemistry of attachment involves hormones such as oxytocin and vasopressin. These molecules influence bonding, trust, and parental care. They are not uniquely human. Similar systems appear in many mammals. In certain vole species, slight differences in receptor distribution influence pair bonding behavior. Small genetic variations can alter social patterns. In humans, these hormonal systems interact with culture, language, memory. But the biochemical foundation predates our species. Evolution did not invent attachment from nothing. It elaborated upon mammalian caregiving circuits. Social living provided survival advantages, cooperative hunting, shared childcare, protection. Over time, brains adapted to navigate increasingly complex social networks. Yet the underlying chemistry remains ancient. When you feel calm connection or quiet comfort near others, those sensations arise from pathways shaped long before recorded history. Across species, bonding appears in varied forms: herd cohesion, parental care, pair partnerships. Convergent evolution sometimes yields similar social strategies in distant lineages. The pattern repeats existing structures refined, not replaced. Old molecules performing new combinations. Across all these quiet features, the curve of the skull, the sensitivity of fingertips, the flow of milk, the shape of the chin, the chemistry of attachment. The same gentle themes continue. Evolution modifies what exists. It carries forward earlier drafts. It tolerates imperfection. It accepts trade-offs. It revises gradually, often unevenly. It sometimes arrives at similar outcomes through different paths. And through all of this, the human body remains a layered record of time. Steady, sufficient, ongoing. There is a quiet continuity in the way your body forms scars. When skin is cut or scraped, cells move toward the site. Platelets gather. Clotting proteins weave together to slow bleeding. Inflammation follows, then rebuilding. Fibroblasts lay down collagen fibers, not always in the same smooth pattern as before, but strong enough to restore integrity. This capacity for repair is not uniquely human. It is shared across animals with internal tissues that must withstand injury. Early multicellular organisms evolved mechanisms to seal breaches in their outer layers. Over time, those mechanisms grew more coordinated and complex. Human skin does not regenerate perfectly. Some animals, like certain salamanders, can regrow limbs. Humans cannot. Evolution shaped our repair system to be fast and reliable rather than complete. Again, sufficiency over perfection. A scar is a sign of healing that prioritized closure and strength over symmetry. It reflects a compromise shaped by survival pressures. Bleeding must stop quickly. Infection must be contained. The pattern of collagen matters less than restoring function. The underlying genes guiding wound repair are ancient. Variations exist among species and among individuals. Some heal with minimal scarring. Others form thicker tissue. The process unfolds without conscious direction. Cells communicate chemically, coordinate growth, then quiet down once stability returns. A scar rests quietly afterward, a trace of injury and of repair. There is also the gentle inheritance of the human spine's segmentation. Each vertebra develops from embryonic structures called somites, repeating blocks of tissue that form along the early embryo's axis. These repeating units are a hallmark of vertebrate development. Fish, reptiles, mammals all share this segmented body plan. It likely arose very early in chordate evolution. Repetition allows flexibility. It allows localized movement without compromising the entire structure. In humans, the spine is divided into cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal regions. The number of vertebrae in each region is remarkably consistent across mammals, particularly in the neck. Most mammals, from giraffes to mice, have 7 cervical vertebrae. This consistency reflects deep developmental constraints. Altering the number of neck vertebrae can disrupt other systems. So evolution tends to modify length and proportion rather than count. A giraffe's neck stretches long, but still holds 7 vertebrae. Humans carry the same count. The repetition of segments speaks to a design principle that emerged long ago and proved durable, rather than inventing new body plans repeatedly. Evolution modified proportions within an established framework. Your spine bends when you lean. It twists slightly when you turn. Each segment contributes a small part. Layered repetition forming stability. There is the quiet story of human taste. Taste buds detect sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami flavors. These categories correspond to chemical signals relevant to survival. Sweet often indicates energy-rich carbohydrates. Salty signals essential electrolytes. Bitter can warn of toxins. The receptors for these tastes evolved gradually as organisms interacted with varied food sources. Detecting sugar had clear advantages. Recognizing bitterness could prevent ingestion of harmful compounds. The genes encoding taste receptors vary among individuals and populations. Some people are more sensitive to bitterness than others. This variation reflects genetic diversity maintained over time. Evolution did not create taste for culinary enjoyment. It shaped chemical detection systems that guided feeding behavior. Culture layered complexity upon that foundation. Cooking, seasoning, fermentation. These practices interact with ancient sensory circuits. Across mammals, taste systems differ according to diet. Cats, for example, lack functional sweet receptors, reflecting their carnivorous ancestry. Again, adaptation modifies a shared toolkit. When you eat, taste receptors activate briefly, then reset. They are quiet until needed. The system rests between meals. There is also the steady inheritance of the human stress recovery cycle. After a surge of stress hormones, the body gradually returns to baseline. The parasympathetic nervous system slows heart rate, lowers blood pressure, resumes digestion. This oscillation between activation and rest is ancient. Even simple organisms exhibit cycles of heightened and reduced activity. Invertebrates. The balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic systems became more coordinated. The vagus nerve, a central component of parasympathetic regulation, extends from the brainstem to multiple organs. It influences heart rhythm, breathing, digestion. This nerve is not newly evolved for modern life. It has deep evolutionary roots, part of a conserved system, maintaining internal balance. When you exhale slowly, the vagus nerve subtly adjusts heart rate, not dramatically, just enough. The body seeks equilibrium. Evolution favored organisms capable of shifting between alertness and restoration. Across species, similar balancing mechanisms appear, though tuned to different lifestyles. Predators may sustain alertness longer. Prey animals may recover quickly after flight. Humans carry both capacities, and the cycle continues quietly, whether noticed or not. Finally, there is the quiet continuity in the human genome itself. The human genome contains sequences inherited from ancient ancestors, including segments shared with other mammals, reptiles, even earlier life forms. Many genes are highly conserved, meaning their sequences have changed little over vast stretches of time. Some genetic elements no longer code for active proteins. They remain as pseudogenes or repetitive sequences. Fragments of viral DNA are embedded within our chromosomes. Remnants of infections that occurred in distant ancestors and became part of the hereditary material. Evolution does not produce a streamlined, minimalist genome. It accumulates changes. It tolerates neutral sequences. It repurposes fragments when possible. Gene duplication is common. A copy can drift and occasionally acquire new function. This gradual tinkering builds complexity over time. The instructions inside each cell reflect layers of history. Shared sequences link humans to other primates closely, to mammals more broadly, to vertebrates, and beyond. Convergent evolution sometimes produces similar traits through different genetic roots, but shared ancestry leaves identifiable patterns. Within you, billions of cells carry this genomic archive. Most genes are silent at any given moment. Some activate, others wait. The genome is not static. Mutations arise quietly each generation. Most are neutral. Some are harmful. A few provide slight advantages that may spread slowly. Change continues, though at a pace that feels still on human timescales. Across all these layers, scars forming, vertebrae repeating, taste receptors signaling, stress cycles balancing, genomes storing history. Familiar themes return again. Evolution modifies existing structures. It carries remnants forward. It accepts trade-offs. It operates gradually, often unevenly. It finds similar solutions across distant branches of life. It values sufficiency over ideal form. And through it all, the body remains steady, layered, adaptive, ongoing, quietly alive in this moment. There is a quiet pattern in the way human infants grip a finger. If you place a finger into the palm of a newborn, the tiny hand often closes around it automatically. This is called the palmar grasp reflex. It appears without instruction. It fades gradually over the first months of life. This reflex traces back through primate ancestry in species whose infants cling to their mother's fur. A strong grasp is essential for survival. The neural circuitry that produces this reflex is ancient. It is wired into early development. Human infants no longer rely on fur clinging in the same way, yet the reflex remains. It softens as voluntary control grows. The brain matures. Pathways reorganize. Evolution does not remove every ancestral behavior simply because context changes. If a reflex does not cause harm, it may persist quietly. Across mammals, early life reflexes appear and recede in patterns shaped by ecological needs. Some are retained longer. Others fade sooner. In humans, the grasp reflex is brief, a small echo of arboreal beginnings. It appears, it disappears, a trace carried forward. There is also the gentle continuity in the structure of human blood vessels. Arteries, veins, and capillaries form branching networks that distribute oxygen and nutrients. The pattern of branching follows physical principles, minimizing energy cost while maximizing reach. This vascular architecture is not uniquely human. It is deeply conserved among vertebrates. The earliest circulatory systems were simpler, but as body size increased, more intricate branching became necessary. The heart pumps. Arteries carry blood outward under pressure. Veins return it. Capillaries exchange gases and nutrients at the smallest scale. Evolution did not reinvent circulation for each lineage. It adjusted vessel thickness, elasticity, and branching density according to metabolic demand. In giraffes, blood vessels must withstand higher pressure to reach the brain. In whales, circulation adapts to deep dives. In humans, vessels are balanced for upright posture and moderate endurance. The same underlying plan repeats. Inside you, vessels expand slightly with warmth, constrict in cold. They respond to chemical signals. They repair small damage. The system is dynamic but steady. Most of its work is silent. It continues whether noticed or not. There is the quiet inheritance of human emotional expression in tears. Humans produce tears in response to irritation, but also in response to emotion. The emotional tear response appears more pronounced in humans than in most other animals, though basic tear production for eye lubrication is widespread. Lacrimal glands produce tears to keep the surface of the eye moist and free of debris. This function is ancient. Emotional tearing likely evolved later, possibly intertwined with social communication. The exact evolutionary pathway of emotional tears is still studied. Some researchers suggest they may serve as social signals, reducing aggression or eliciting support. Regardless of their precise origin, the glands themselves are not new. They are modified components of a broader mammalian system. Evolution often layers new roles onto existing structures. A gland that lubricates can also signal across species. Communication takes many forms: vocalization, posture, scent. Humans incorporate tears into that repertoire. When tears form, they follow the same ducts and channels that have long maintained ocular health. An old structure used in expanded ways. There is also the steady story of human endurance. Humans are not the fastest sprinters in the animal kingdom, nor are they the strongest. Yet humans are capable of sustained moderate distance running, especially in warm conditions. Certain anatomical features support this: long legs relative to body size, elastic tendons such as the Achilles tendon, efficient sweat-based cooling, and a nuchal ligament that stabilizes the head during running. These features did not appear simultaneously. They accumulated gradually in hominin populations that moved across open landscapes. The Achilles tendon, for example, stores and releases elastic energy with each stride. This tendon exists in other mammals, but is particularly developed in humans relative to body size. Sweat glands, as mentioned before, are numerous in humans. Cooling through evaporation allows sustained activity in heat. Evolution did not design humans to dominate speed contests. It shaped a body capable of endurance in specific ecological contexts. Across species, different locomotor strategies evolved: sprinting cheetahs, soaring birds, burrowing moles. Convergent evolution has produced endurance abilities in certain mammals, like wolves, though through somewhat different proportions and musculature. Humans represent one variation among many. The capacity for endurance rests quietly in muscle fibers and tendons, even when not used. And finally, there is the quiet continuity of human memory systems. The hippocampus, a structure deep within the brain, plays a key role in forming new memories. This structure is present in other mammals and even in simpler forms in earlier vertebrates. Memory as a biological function is ancient. Even simple organisms can adjust behavior based on prior experience. Neural circuits capable of plasticity emerged early in animal evolution. In mammals, memory systems became more layered: short-term memory, long-term memory, procedural memory. These distinctions reflect increasing neural specialization. The hippocampus does not operate alone. It interacts with cortical regions, the amygdala, and other structures. Evolution did not invent memory for humans specifically. It elaborated upon neural plasticity that was already present. The ability to store and retrieve information offers clear survival advantages. Remembering food sources, dangers, social relationships, these capacities shape behavior. Across species, memory manifests in varied complexity. Birds store food caches and recall locations months later. Elephants remember migration routes. Humans developed symbolic language that interacts with memory, allowing stories and shared knowledge. Yet the biological foundation remains part of a deeper lineage. Neurons strengthen connections through repeated activation. Synapses adjust. Even now, as you listen, neural pathways shift slightly in response to sound. Not dramatically, just subtly. Across all these quiet patterns, infant reflexes branching vessels, tear ducts, endurance tendons, memory circuits. The same themes return once more. Evolution modifies existing systems. It preserves what functions well enough. It allows vestiges to remain. It layers new uses onto old structures. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It sometimes arrives at similar outcomes in distant branches of life. And through all of it, the human body continues calmly, layered with time, adapted but unfinished, sufficient, steady. Here, there is a quiet continuity in the way your ears are shaped. The outer ear, the pinna, curves and folds in a pattern that helps funnel sound waves toward the ear canal. The ridges are not random. They subtly shape how sound enters, aiding in determining direction, especially from front to back. This structure is not uniquely human. Many mammals possess mobile outer ears that swivel toward sound sources. In humans, the muscles that once moved the ears are still present, but they are reduced. Some people can wiggle their ears slightly. Most cannot. The muscles remain because they do not impose enough disadvantage to disappear entirely. They are vestiges of a time when orienting the ear toward sound had clearer survival value. Evolution modified behavior and posture as vision and head movement became more dominant in humans. The need to swivel ears decreased. The muscles softened in importance. Yet the outer ear still shapes sound subtly. It still protects the canal. It still participates in hearing. Across mammals, ear shapes vary widely, long and upright in rabbits, flattened in seals, rounded in primates. The underlying tissues are similar. Cartilage forms the framework. Skin covers it. Muscles attach. Convergent evolution has shaped similar ear positions in unrelated species that rely heavily on acute hearing. Though through different structural nuances, your ears rest quietly now, receiving sound whether attended to or not. They are shaped by layers of adjustment, not newly invented, just revised. There is also the gentle inheritance of the human knee. The knee joint is a hinge joint, allowing flexion and extension, with slight rotation. It connects the femur to the tibia, stabilized by ligaments and cushioned by menisci. This joint reflects the shift toward habitual bipedalism. In quadrupedal mammals, knees bear weight differently. In humans, the alignment of the femur angles inward toward the knee, bringing the body's center of mass over a single supporting leg during walking. This angle did not emerge overnight. Fossil femurs show gradual shifts in alignment across hominin species. The knee must balance stability with mobility. It supports body weight during standing and walking, yet allows bending for sitting and climbing. It is not immune to strain. Modern lifestyles prolonged sitting, hard surfaces, reduced variability in movement place stresses that may differ from those experienced by earlier populations. Evolution shaped the knee for movement across varied terrain, not for prolonged immobility. Still, the joint functions sufficiently across a wide range of activity. Ligaments hold, cartilage cushions, synovial fluid lubricates. The structure is old in concept, modified in detail. Across mammals, knees differ in orientation and range of motion according to locomotion style. Horses have elongated limbs adapted for running. Primates retain climbing flexibility. Humans occupy a middle ground. Steady enough. There is the quiet continuity in the human liver. The liver performs a vast array of functions detoxifying substances, storing glycogen, synthesizing proteins, producing bile. It is one of the most metabolically active organs in the body. The liver's essential roles are deeply conserved across vertebrates. Fish possess livers. Reptiles do. Birds and mammals share similar hepatic architecture. Hepatocytes, the main liver cells, process nutrients absorbed from the digestive tract. They regulate blood chemistry in subtle, continuous ways. Evolution did not reinvent metabolic processing for each lineage. It preserved and elaborated upon a central organ capable of chemical regulation. The liver also has a remarkable capacity for regeneration. If part of it is removed, the remaining tissue can grow to restore function. This regenerative ability reflects ancient cellular pathways that respond to injury, not infinite regeneration, not limb regrowth, but sufficient recovery to maintain survival. Across species, liver size and metabolic emphasis vary depending on diet and activity. Carnivores process protein-rich diets differently than herbivores. Humans carry an omnivorous metabolic flexibility. The liver works quietly in the background, adjusting to meals, fasting, toxins, and medications. You do not feel its labor directly. It continues steadily. There is also the gentle story of human facial hair patterns. In many mammals, facial hair serves sensory or protective roles. Whiskers detect environmental changes. Thick fur insulates. In humans, facial hair appears more prominently in males after puberty, influenced by hormonal changes. The distribution reflects a combination of ancestral patterns and sexual selection pressures that emerged over time. The follicles are not new structures. They are part of the same mammalian hair system. Hormones modulate their growth in specific regions. Evolution layered reproductive signaling onto existing hair growth pathways. Variation persists across populations and individuals. Some lineages show thicker beards. Others show minimal growth. The pattern is flexible. Across primates, facial hair varies widely. Some species display colorful facial patterns. Others remain relatively bare. The underlying biological toolkit is shared. Hair grows, it falls, it regrows. A steady cycle shaped by deeper genetic instructions. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in the human sense of rhythm. Humans can synchronize movement to external beats, tapping a foot to music, nodding in time. This capacity appears more developed in humans than in many other mammals, though some birds and marine mammals show similar abilities. The neural circuits that support rhythm involve coordination between auditory and motor systems. These circuits evolved from more general pathways used for movement and communication. Evolution did not design rhythm exclusively for music. It shaped brains capable of predictive timing, useful for speech, coordinated group activity, and environmental awareness. Music may be a cultural elaboration layered atop these neural foundations. Across species, Rhythmic behavior appears in varied contexts: coordinated hunting, mating displays, flock movement. Convergent evolution has produced beat synchronization in some distant lineages, though through different neural architectures. Humans carry a brain that can anticipate patterns in time. When you listen to sound, your brain subtly predicts the next beat. Even now, if there is ambient rhythm in the room, a fan, distant traffic, your nervous system may be quietly aligning with it. Across all these structures, ears and their softened muscles, knees and their angles, liver cells and their chemistry, hair follicles and their cycles, neural timing circuits. The same themes continue gently. Evolution modifies what already exists. It retains vestiges when they do no harm. It accepts trade-offs between mobility and stability, complexity and efficiency. It proceeds gradually, sometimes unevenly. It sometimes arrives at similar solutions through different paths. And through all of it, the human body remains layered with time. Not perfected, not final, just sufficient, just continuing. There is a quiet story in the way your hands and feet wrinkle in water. If you stay in a bath or shower long enough, the skin of your fingertips begins to pucker. For a long time, this was thought to be simple swelling of the skin. More recently, it has been understood as an active process. Blood vessels beneath the skin constrict in response to prolonged moisture, pulling the surface into small ridges. This wrinkling may improve grip in wet conditions, channeling water away and increasing traction. The response is controlled by the nervous system. It does not happen in the same way if certain nerves are damaged. The mechanism itself is built upon older vascular and neural systems. Blood vessels constrict and dilate for many reasons: temperature regulation, injury response, stress. In this case, a familiar pathway is used in a specific context. Evolution did not create a new organ for wet grip. It modified existing circulation and skin structures to produce a subtle adjustment. Not dramatic, just enough. Across primates, similar wrinkling occurs. The basic design of friction ridges and vascular control is shared. The body uses what it already has. The pattern repeats. There is also the gentle continuity in the human sense of temperature. Embedded within your skin are thermoreceptors, specialized nerve endings that detect warmth and cold. These receptors send signals to the brain, allowing you to adjust behavior, seek shade, add a layer, move toward warmth. Temperature detection is ancient. Even simple organisms respond to changes in heat. Invertebrates, thermosensation became more refined as internal temperature regulation evolved. Mammals maintain relatively constant internal temperatures. This requires both detection and response. Sweating, shivering, altering blood flow. These mechanisms operate together. The hypothalamus, a small region in the brain, helps regulate this balance. It receives temperature information and coordinates adjustments. Evolution layered temperature control onto earlier metabolic systems. It did not discard the old pathways. It integrated them. Across mammals, strategies vary. Some hibernate, some migrate, some grow thicker fur seasonally. Humans rely heavily on behavior clothing, shelter, fire layered atop biological thermoregulation. Yet the sensory foundation remains within the skin. You feel warmth? You feel cool air? Signals travel inward, quietly. The system is sufficient for most environments encountered across human history. There is the steady inheritance of the human jaw muscles. The muscles that move your jaw, masseter, temporalis, and others allow chewing and speaking. In earlier hominins, especially those with tougher diets, these muscles were often larger. Some fossil skulls show pronounced muscle attachment sites. As diet changed with tool use and cooking softening food, jaw size and muscle mass gradually reduced. The skull reshaped accordingly. Evolution did not remove chewing capacity. It adjusted it to match changing environmental pressures. The jaw still performs its primary function. It moves rhythmically when eating. It shapes sound during speech. The temporomandibular joint, connecting jaw to skull, reflects compromise between strength and flexibility. It allows sliding and rotation. Across mammals, jaw musculature varies widely. Herbivores often have powerful grinding muscles. Carnivores emphasize biting force. Humans fall somewhere between. The genetic pathways guiding muscle growth are shared across vertebrates. Expression differs in degree. Even now, subtle variations in jaw shape and muscle strength appear among individuals. Change continues, but gradually, there is also the quiet story of the human sense of pain. Pain receptors, called nociceptors, detect potential tissue damage. They respond to extreme heat, pressure, or chemical signals released during injury. Pain is not uniquely human. It is a protective system found across animals with nervous systems. Avoiding harmful stimuli improves survival. The neural pathways that carry pain signals ascend through the spinal cord to the brain. These pathways are ancient in design, refined over evolutionary time. Pain is not perfect. It can persist beyond injury. It can arise without clear cause. Yet its fundamental role is protective. Evolution favored organisms that withdrew from damaging conditions. Nociception, the detection of harmful stimuli, appears early in animal history. Humans experience pain within a broader cognitive context. Emotion and memory intertwine with sensation. This layering reflects the expansion of cortical processing atop older sensory circuits. The underlying architecture remains similar to that of other mammals. When you feel discomfort, it is part of a system shaped long before human language emerged. Not punitive, protective. There is finally the quiet continuity in human aging. Cells divide. DNA replicates. Over time, small errors accumulate. Telomeres, protective caps at the ends of chromosomes, shorten with repeated division. Repair mechanisms operate, but not indefinitely. Aging is not unique to humans. Most multicellular organisms experience gradual decline in cellular efficiency over time. The balance between repair and wear shifts slowly. Evolution does not prioritize indefinite longevity. It favors traits that enhance survival and reproduction within specific environmental contexts. Mechanisms that maintain cells early in life may have diminishing returns later. This pattern appears across many species. Yet, humans possess remarkable longevity compared to many mammals of similar size. Extended lifespan may relate to social structures, knowledge transmission, and cooperative care. The biological processes of aging reflect deep evolutionary trade-offs. Repair systems exist. They are not absolute. Across species, aging unfolds at different rates. Some turtles live long lives with slow metabolic decline. Some insects live briefly and intensely. Humans move at a moderate pace. Cells continue repairing, dividing, signaling. Even now, across all these quiet processes, wrinkling skin, sensing temperature, chewing softened food, feeling pain, moving through time, the same gentle themes remain. Evolution modifies existing systems. It reuses pathways for new contexts. It tolerates imperfection. It accepts trade-offs between durability and flexibility. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It finds similar strategies in distant lineages, and the human body carries this layered history calmly, not rushed, not finalized, simply continuing, moment by moment. There is a quiet pattern in the way your lungs branch. If you could see the airways inside your chest, you would notice a tree-like structure. The trachea divides into two primary bronchi. Each bronchus divides again and again into smaller and smaller tubes until they end in clusters of tiny air sacs called alveoli. This branching pattern is not random. It follows physical principles that balance surface area with efficient airflow. The design appears across mammals, with variations in size and scale. The earliest lungs evolved from air-filled sacs in aquatic ancestors. Over time, those sacs developed internal partitions, increasing the area available for gas exchange. In mammals, this branching became highly elaborate. Evolution did not invent a new strategy for oxygen exchange in humans. It elaborated on an existing one, refining the geometry of branching tubes. The alveoli are delicate. Their walls are thin to allow oxygen and carbon dioxide to pass easily between air and blood. This thinness is a compromise. It increases efficiency, but requires protection from damage. Across species, lung structure reflects habitat. Birds, for example, evolved a different system with air sacs that allow unidirectional airflow. This is a separate evolutionary solution to the challenge of oxygen delivery. Convergent evolution often shapes similar outcomes: efficient respiration through different anatomical paths. Your lungs expand and contract without conscious effort most of the time. The diaphragm moves. The ribs follow. Air enters, leaves, a rhythm shaped by ancient transitions from water to land. Steady. There is also the gentle continuity in the human eyebrow. Eyebrows are small bands of hair above the eyes. They help divert sweat and rain away from vision. They also play a role in expression. In earlier primates, pronounced brow ridges may have shaded the eyes or reinforced facial structure. In modern humans, the bony brow ridge is reduced, but the soft tissue of the eyebrow remains expressive. Muscles attached to the skin allow subtle movement, raising, lowering, furrowing. These movements communicate emotion without words. The biological basis for facial musculature predates language. Over time, as social complexity increased, finer control of expression may have offered advantages in cooperation and group living. Evolution did not create eyebrows solely for communication. It modified existing facial hair and muscle systems to serve multiple roles. Across mammals, facial hair varies. Some species use whiskers for sensory input. Others display bold patterns for signaling. Humans retain modest hair above the eyes, shaped by both protective and communicative influences. When your face rests, eyebrows soften into stillness. They require no effort. There is the quiet inheritance of human fat storage. Adipose tissue stores energy in the form of lipids. This capacity is not uniquely human. It appears across animals that must balance periods of abundance and scarcity. In evolutionary history, food availability fluctuated. Storing energy during times of plenty increased survival during lean periods. Humans tend to store fat in characteristic patterns influenced by genetics, hormones, and environment. Distribution differs between individuals and populations. Evolution did not design fat storage for modern abundance. It shaped a system responsive to variable food supply. The same biochemical pathways that store energy also insulate and protect organs. Across mammals, fat plays similar roles. Marine mammals rely on blubber for insulation. Hibernating animals accumulate reserves for winter. The underlying metabolic processes are conserved. Fat cells expand and contract. Hormones regulate appetite and energy use. The system reflects adaptation to past environments, functioning in present ones. It is not optimized for every modern condition. It is sufficient for survival across many. There is also the steady story of human voice pitch. The length and thickness of vocal cords influence the pitch of the voice. During puberty, hormonal changes can alter these tissues, especially in males, lowering average pitch. The larynx, as mentioned earlier, evolved from structures used in breathing and swallowing. Over time, subtle modifications allowed for complex vocal control. Voice pitch variation may have played roles in social signaling, conveying maturity, strength, or emotional state. Across mammals, vocalizations vary widely. Wolves howl, whales sing, primates call to one another. Convergent evolution has produced complex acoustic communication in distant lineages. Though through distinct anatomical configurations, humans rely heavily on vocal communication layered with language. Yet the biological foundation is shared. Vocal cords vibrate as air passes through. Muscles adjust tension. Resonance shapes sound. When you are silent, those cords rest. A system ready, but not required to perform. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in the human sleep-wake cycle over a lifetime. Infants sleep in short intervals. Adolescents often experience shifts in circadian timing. Older adults may sleep more lightly. These patterns reflect changes in hormonal regulation and neural circuitry over developmental time. The pineal gland secretes melatonin in response to darkness. light exposure influences this rhythm. These mechanisms are conserved across vertebrates. Evolution shaped sleep patterns in response to environmental pressures, predator avoidance, social structure, seasonal variation. Humans adapted to group living, which may have allowed staggered sleep patterns for safety. Across species, sleep architecture differs. Dolphins rest one hemisphere of the brain at a time. Birds can sleep while perched, yet the need for rest appears widespread. The human sleep cycle reflects both ancient biology and cultural influence. When night comes, signals shift gradually. Alertness fades. Muscles soften. Across all these quiet systems, branching lungs, expressive brows, stored energy, vibrating vocal cords, shifting sleep rhythms, familiar themes continue to unfold. Evolution modifies existing designs. It layers new roles onto old structures. It preserves what functions well enough. It accepts compromises. It moves slowly, often unevenly. It sometimes finds similar solutions in distant branches of life. And through all of it, the human body remains a patient archive of time, breathing, resting, continuing. There is a quiet continuity in the way your hands tremble slightly when you hold them very still. If you extend your fingers and look closely, you may notice a faint, constant movement. This is called physiological tremor. It is not a sign of weakness. It reflects the ongoing adjustments of muscles and nerves maintaining posture. Muscle fibers contract in small groups. Motor neurons fire in subtle patterns. The body is never perfectly still, because perfect stillness is not its design. This constant micro-adjustment is ancient. All vertebrates rely on similar motor control systems to maintain balance and posture. Signals travel from brain to muscle and back again, refining movement moment by moment. Evolution did not construct a system for absolute rigidity. It shaped one for dynamic stability. A little movement allows correction. A little variability prevents strain. Across species, fine tremors appear in different contexts. Birds balancing on branches, cats poised before a leap. These small oscillations reflect responsive control, not error. The nervous system continuously recalibrates. Even when you rest, signals pass quietly between neurons and muscle fibers. Not dramatic, just steady correction. There is also the gentle story of human saliva. Saliva moistens food, begins digestion, and protects the mouth from pathogens. Salivary glands produce enzymes such as amylase, which begins breaking down starches even before food reaches the stomach. The presence of amylase in saliva varies among human populations, reflecting long-term dietary patterns. Groups with historically starch-rich diets often have higher copy numbers of the gene that produces salivary amylase. This is a subtle example of recent human evolution. Gene duplication increased enzyme production. Over many generations, individuals better able to digest starch efficiently may have had slight advantages, yet the salivary glands themselves are not new. They evolved early in vertebrates as part of feeding and oral health. Evolution modified enzyme levels rather than inventing new digestive organs. It adjusted quantity within an established framework. Across mammals, saliva composition differs depending on diet. Carnivores produce enzymes suited to protein digestion. Herbivores adapt differently. The human mouth reflects omnivory, flexibility rather than specialization. Saliva flows quietly most of the day. You rarely notice it unless it is absent. There is the quiet continuity of human nails. Fingernails and toenails are made of keratin, the same protein that forms hair, and the outer layer of skin. In many mammals, keratin structures form claws. In primates, including humans, these structures flattened into nails. The transition from claw to nail likely supported grasping and tactile sensitivity. Flat nails expose the pads of fingers, enhancing touch. Evolution did not eliminate keratinized tips. It reshaped them. The nail bed still grows continuously. Cells divide at the base, pushing older cells outward. The visible nail plate is composed of compacted, dead cells, protective and durable. Across primates, nail shape varies slightly, but the overall pattern is shared. Some species retain grooming claws on specific digits, reflecting layered adaptation. Humans retain nails on all digits. They protect sensitive fingertips. They assist in fine manipulation. Even when trimmed short, they continue to grow. A slow, steady process. There is also the steady inheritance of human fear responses. When startled by a sudden sound, your body may flinch before you think. This startle reflex is mediated by pathways that run through the brainstem, bypassing slower cortical processing. The amygdala plays a central role in evaluating threats. It responds rapidly to potential danger, sometimes before conscious awareness. These structures are not uniquely human. They are present in other mammals and have analogs in earlier vertebrates. Rapid threat detection improves survival. Over time, these circuits became refined, but not replaced. Humans can experience fear in response to imagined or remembered threats, reflecting the expansion of cortical influence over older systems. Yet the underlying architecture remains similar to that of other mammals. Evolution layered imagination onto instinct. The startle reflex still fires in milliseconds, then settles. There is finally the quiet continuity in the structure of human skin layers. The epidermis, dermis, and subcutaneous tissue form a layered barrier. The outermost cells of the epidermis are constantly shed and replaced. Beneath them, living cells divide and migrate upward. This regenerative pattern is ancient. Protective outer layers evolved early in terrestrial vertebrates as a defense against dehydration and pathogens. Keratin production strengthens the barrier. Pigment cells add protection from ultraviolet light. The skin is not static. It renews itself continuously. Every few weeks, much of the outer layer has been replaced. Evolution did not design a permanent shield. It shaped a renewing one across species. Skin varies scales in reptiles, feathers in birds, fur in mammals. Yet the underlying cellular processes share similarities. Humans retain sweat glands in abundance. We shed continuously. We heal when cut. The surface you inhabit is alive with quiet activity. Across all these systems, trembling hands, flowing saliva, growing nails, startled reflexes, renewing skin, the same gentle themes appear again. Evolution modifies what already exists. It repurposes structures. It duplicates genes and adjusts levels. It retains reflexes that remain useful. It accepts imperfection and variability. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It produces similar strategies in distant branches of life. And through it all, the body continues its soft work, unannounced, layered with time, sufficient for now, still becoming, in small ways, with each passing generation. There is a quiet story in the way your body knows which way is up. Even with your eyes closed, you have a sense of orientation. You can tell if you are lying down or sitting upright. This awareness arises partly from the vestibular system in the inner ear, but also from sensors in muscles and joints called proprioceptors. Proprioception is the sense of body position. Stretch receptors in muscles detect changes in length. Joint capsules contain sensors that respond to angle and pressure. These signals travel continuously to the brain. This system is not uniquely human. It is shared across vertebrates. Animals that leap, swim, climb, or crawl rely on internal maps of their own posture. Evolution did not invent a separate system for conscious body awareness. It refined feedback loops that already existed to coordinate movement. In fish, proprioceptive systems help maintain swimming patterns. In quadrupeds, they coordinate limb placement. In humans, they allow balance on two legs and fine motor control. The signals are constant, even when you are still. If you shift slightly in your seat, receptors adjust instantly. You do not need to instruct them. They operate below attention, layered atop ancient motor circuits. There is also the gentle continuity in the structure of human blood itself. Red blood cells in humans are biconcave discs. This shape increases surface area for oxygen exchange and allows flexibility as cells pass through narrow capillaries. In mammals, red blood cells lack nuclei when mature. This adaptation allows more room for hemoglobin, enhancing oxygen transport efficiency. In contrast, many other vertebrates retain nucleated red blood cells. The loss of the nucleus in mammalian red blood cells did not happen abruptly. It reflects gradual shifts in developmental processes. By streamlining the cell, mammals improved oxygen delivery to support higher metabolic rates. Evolution modified cell structure rather than inventing a new molecule for oxygen binding. Hemoglobin remained. The packaging changed. Across mammals, red blood cell size and lifespan vary slightly, but the basic pattern persists. Your blood cells circulate quietly, each living for about 4 months before being replaced. The bone marrow produces new ones continuously, an ongoing renewal shaped by ancient demands for oxygen. There is the quiet inheritance of human yawning. Yawning appears in many vertebrates, mammals, birds, even some reptiles. Its exact function is still discussed. Some evidence suggests it may help regulate brain temperature. Other theories relate to state transitions between alertness and rest. Yawning often spreads socially among humans and some other animals. Seeing or hearing a yawn can trigger another. This contagious aspect may relate to social attunement mechanisms, the muscular act itself opening the jaw wide. Inhaling deeply relies on jaw and respiratory systems that evolved for other primary functions. Evolution layered yawning onto existing anatomy. It did not require new structures. Across species, yawns look similar in broad outline, though they vary in context. The reflex appears and fades. No urgency, just a shift in state. There is also the steady story of human muscle fiber types. Skeletal muscles contain different fiber types suited for distinct tasks. Some fibers contract quickly and powerfully, but fatigue rapidly. Others contract more slowly and resist fatigue, supporting endurance. The distribution of these fibers varies among individuals and across muscle groups. It reflects both genetic inheritance and environmental use. Evolution did not design a single uniform muscle. It preserved variation within tissue to allow flexibility. In animals adapted for sprinting, fast twitch fibers dominate. In those built for sustained migration, slow twitch fibers are more common. Humans possess a mixture, allowing both bursts of strength and longer duration effort. This diversity within muscle tissue reflects a broader evolutionary principle. Maintaining variability can enhance adaptability. Muscle fibers respond to training and use. They can shift properties slightly over time. Change is not only generational, some adjustments occur within a lifetime. Still, the underlying framework is inherited. Muscles contract when signaled. They rest when not. Quiet cycles of tension and release. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in the structure of human chromosomes. Humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Other great apes have 24 pairs. The difference arises from a fusion event in human ancestry, where two ancestral chromosomes joined end to end. This fusion did not create entirely new genetic material. It combined existing sequences. Evidence of this event remains visible in the structure of human chromosome 2, where remnants of telomeres appear in the middle of the chromosome. Evolution often operates through rearrangement. Segments invert, duplicate, fuse, or break. Most such changes are neutral or harmful. Occasionally, they persist. The chromosome fusion did not dramatically alter daily human function. It was incorporated into the lineage gradually. This is another example of modification rather than invention. Across species, chromosome numbers vary widely. Structural rearrangements contribute to divergence over time. Yet the core genetic code, the 4 nucleotide bases, is shared across nearly all life. Within each of your cells, DNA coils tightly, instructing protein production, regulating development, guiding repair. Most of these instructions are ancient, some are newer, all are layered. Across these quiet features, internal orientation, oxygen-carrying cells, yawns that ripple through groups, diverse muscle fibers, fused chromosomes, the same gentle themes continue to return. Evolution modifies what already exists. It rearranges, duplicates, trims. It retains systems that function well enough. It allows variation within and across generations. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It sometimes arrives at similar solutions through different structural routes. And through all of this, your body remains a living record, balanced in gravity, breathing air shaped by branching lungs, carrying blood shaped by ancient cellular shifts, holding chromosomes that fused long ago. Steady, sufficient, continuing quietly into the next breath. There is a quiet continuity in the way your pupils widen and narrow. When light increases, the pupils constrict. When light fades, they dilate. This adjustment happens without effort. Muscles in the iris respond to signals from the autonomic nervous system, balancing clarity and protection. The reflex is ancient. Light-sensitive cells appeared very early in animal evolution. Even simple organisms could distinguish brightness from darkness. Over time, more complex structures developed cup-shaped eyes, lenses, adjustable apertures. The pupil's ability to change size is a refinement layered onto those early light detectors. It allows fine-tuned control of how much light enters the eye. Evolution did not design the human iris from nothing. It modified muscle arrangements around an existing visual organ. Across species, pupil shapes vary. Cats have vertical slits. Goats have horizontal pupils. Humans have round ones. Each shape reflects ecological pressures, hunting style, field of view, diurnal or nocturnal habits. Convergent evolution sometimes produces similar pupil shapes in unrelated species that share lifestyles. Yet the basic mechanism, muscles contracting in response to light, remains consistent, even now. As you sit in whatever lighting surrounds you, your pupils are adjusting slightly. No instruction needed, just quiet calibration. There is also the gentle inheritance of human laughter. Laughter arises from coordinated contractions of respiratory muscles and vocal cords, often in response to social cues. It appears across cultures. Variations exist, but the pattern is recognizable. Some primates exhibit laughter-like vocalizations during play. These sounds are breathy, rhythmic, and associated with social bonding. The evolutionary roots of laughter likely lie in play behavior and affiliative signaling. It may have served to communicate safety during rough interaction. Evolution did not create a new organ for laughter. It used breathing and vocal systems already present, layering social meaning onto them. Across mammals, play vocalizations differ, but the broader function of signaling non-threat during interaction appears repeatedly. In humans, laughter became more nuanced, integrated with language and abstract humor. Yet its physical expression remains tied to older circuits. The diaphragm contracts in pulses, air escapes in bursts, facial muscles engage. It is a release, but not a dramatic one, just a shift in rhythm. There is the steady story of human shoulder blades. The scapulae lie flat against the back, connected to the collarbones and upper arms. Their mobility contributes to the wide range of motion in the shoulder. In quadrupedal mammals, scapulae are oriented differently, often more vertically aligned along the rib cage, as posture shifted in hominin ancestors. The orientation of the scapula changed gradually. This shift supported overhead reaching and, eventually, throwing. Throwing with speed and accuracy is a distinctive human ability. It relies on coordinated motion across shoulder, torso, and arm. Small anatomical differences in tendon elasticity, joint orientation, muscle timing contribute to this skill. Evolution did not plan for sports or projectiles. It modified primate anatomy for climbing and manipulation. Later behaviors built upon those adjustments. Across species, forelimb structures adapt to varied uses: digging, flying, swimming. Convergent evolution produces similar motion ranges through different bone arrangements. The human scapula rests quietly most of the time, sliding slightly as you move your arms, an ancient plate of bone reshaped by posture. There is also the quiet continuity in human sweat. Sweat glands release fluid onto the skin's surface, cooling the body through evaporation. Humans have a high density of eccrine sweat glands compared to many mammals. This trait likely evolved in open, warm environments where sustained activity generated heat. Efficient cooling supported endurance and daytime movement. The glands themselves are modified skin structures. Their basic architecture evolved long before humans. Evolution did not create sweating from scratch. It adjusted the number and distribution of glands. Across mammals, sweating varies. Dogs rely more on panting. Horses sweat heavily. Some species rely on behavioral cooling. Humans combine biological cooling with cultural adaptations: shade, clothing, water storage. The fluid that beads on skin during heat reflects ancient thermoregulatory pathways. You may not notice it unless temperature shifts, yet it remains ready. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in human curiosity. Curiosity is not a single organ or gene. It reflects neural systems that reward exploration and learning. Dopamine pathways activate in response to novelty and pattern recognition. These pathways are present in many animals. Exploratory behavior appears widely across species, seeking new resources, investigating unfamiliar objects. These behaviors can offer survival advantages. Evolution shaped brains that respond to uncertainty with interest rather than only fear. In humans, curiosity expanded alongside language and social learning. It allowed accumulation of knowledge across generations, yet the chemical and neural foundations are shared. A small shift in novelty can spark attention. A pattern can draw the mind inward. Even now, as you listen, a quiet thread of curiosity may be present, or it may fade. Both are natural. Across all these systems, pupils adjusting to light, laughter rising from breath, scapulae gliding beneath skin, sweat cooling the surface, neural circuits responding to novelty. Familiar themes continue gently. Evolution modifies what already exists. It layers new uses onto old frameworks. It preserves systems that function sufficiently. It tolerates variability. It proceeds gradually, sometimes unevenly. It finds similar solutions in distant branches of life. And through all of it, the human body remains steady, responsive to light, capable of laughter, cooling in warmth, reaching overhead, learning, slowly, over time, not perfected, just adapted, quietly ongoing. There is a quiet continuity in the way your body repairs bone. If a bone fractures, the body does not replace it with a different material. It rebuilds bone with bone. First, blood gathers at the break, forming a clot. Cells arrive. A soft callus forms, then gradually hardens as new bone tissue is laid down and remodeled. This capacity for bone repair is shared across vertebrates. Early animals with internal skeletons evolved mechanisms to mend structural damage. A skeleton that could not heal would limit survival. Human bones are living tissue. They contain cells called osteoblasts that build bone and osteoclasts that break it down. These cells are in constant dialogue, reshaping the skeleton slowly over time. Even without injury, your bones are renewing themselves. Minerals are deposited and reabsorbed in response to stress, diet, and hormonal signals. Evolution did not design a static frame. It shaped a dynamic one. Across species, bone density and thickness vary according to lifestyle. Birds have lighter bones for flight. Large mammals have dense, weight-bearing skeletons. The underlying cellular processes remain similar. Inside you, this quiet remodeling continues. Not dramatic, just steady maintenance. There is also the gentle inheritance of human blinking. On average, humans blink many times each minute. The eyelids sweep across the surface of the eye, spreading tears and clearing debris. Blinking is not uniquely human. It appears across mammals and other animals with eyelids. The reflex protects vision and maintains moisture. The neural circuits that trigger blinking are ancient. Some blinks are voluntary. Many are automatic, coordinated by brainstem pathways. Evolution layered this protective movement onto the visual system as eyes became more exposed and complex. Across species, blinking frequency varies. Some animals blink rarely. Others possess additional protective membranes. The human blink is subtle and rhythmic. You may not notice it unless attention turns inward. Yet, it occurs even as you sleep, though less frequently. A small sweep of tissue, a momentary closing, then open again. There is the quiet continuity in the structure of human hips. The hip joint connects the femur to the pelvis. It is a ball and socket joint, allowing rotation and stability. In humans, the hip bears substantial weight during standing and walking. As hominins adopted upright posture, the pelvis reshaped and the hip joint reoriented to balance the torso over the legs. This shift happened gradually. Fossil evidence shows incremental changes in pelvic width, femur angle, and joint surface. The hip must be stable enough to support body weight on a single leg during walking, yet mobile enough to allow running and climbing. It is not without strain. Modern inactivity or repetitive motion can stress the joint in ways not typical of ancestral environments. Yet the structure functions sufficiently across varied movement. Across mammals, hip joints vary in depth and orientation. Some species require greater flexibility. Others prioritize stability. The ball and socket design is ancient among tetrapods. Evolution did not invent a new type of joint for humans. It modified proportions and angles. The hip rests quietly when seated or lying down, carrying centuries of walking. There is also the steady story of human vocal learning. Humans are capable of learning complex vocal patterns, languages, accents, songs. This capacity relies on neural plasticity and fine motor control of the vocal tract. While many animals vocalize, fewer demonstrate open-ended vocal learning. Some birds and marine mammals do. In these lineages, similar capacities evolved independently. Convergent evolution produced vocal learning in species separated by vast evolutionary distance. In humans, vocal learning builds upon existing neural circuits for communication and motor control. The expansion of cortical regions associated with speech occurred gradually. Fossils reveal subtle changes in cranial capacity and vocal tract anatomy. Evolution did not create language in a single leap. It layered symbolic communication onto earlier social and vocal systems. The brain networks that support speech are not isolated. They interact with memory, emotion, and sensory processing. Even in silence, these networks remain active, shaping inner thought. Language is an elaboration of older capacities, not detached from them. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in the human gut microbiome. Within your digestive tract live trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi. These communities assist in digestion, produce certain vitamins, and interact with the immune system. Humans did not evolve alone. We co-evolved with microbial partners. The relationship between host and microbe is ancient. Early multicellular organisms formed symbiotic relationships with microbes. Over time, these associations became integrated into metabolism and immunity. The composition of the gut microbiome varies among individuals and cultures, influenced by diet, environment, and genetics. Evolution operates not only on human cells, but on these communities as well. Microbes adapt quickly. They exchange genetic material. They shift in response to change. The human body provides habitat. In return, microbes contribute to digestion and regulation. It is a layered partnership, not always balanced perfectly, but generally stable. Across species, similar symbioses appear. Herbivores rely heavily on gut microbes to digest plant material. Even insects harbor symbiotic bacteria. Convergent evolution shapes these partnerships repeatedly across life. Within you, microbial populations rise and fall quietly, working without instruction. Across all these systems, bones mending, eyelids blinking, hips balancing, voices learning, microbes cooperating. Familiar themes return softly. Evolution modifies existing structures. It preserves what functions well enough. It layers complexity over simpler origins. It tolerates variation. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It arrives at similar solutions in distant branches of life. And through it all, the human body remains a quiet accumulation of time, repairing, blinking, walking, speaking, hosting unseen partners, steady, sufficient, continuing into the next quiet moment. There is a quiet continuity in the way your body senses hunger. When energy stores drop, hormones such as ghrelin rise in the bloodstream. signals travel to the brain, particularly to regions that regulate appetite and motivation. You begin to feel a gentle pull toward food. This signaling system is not uniquely human. It is shared across mammals and, in simpler forms, across many animals. Organisms that could detect energy deficits and respond by seeking nourishment were more likely to survive. Evolution did not invent a new organ for hunger. It adjusted chemical messaging within existing metabolic networks. Leptin, another hormone produced by fat cells, signals longer-term energy availability. Together, these signals help balance intake and expenditure. The system is not perfectly calibrated for modern environments of constant food access. It evolved under conditions where scarcity was common and unpredictability was normal. Yet, the basic feedback loop remains functional. It nudges behavior rather than commanding it. Across species, appetite regulation varies in rhythm and intensity. Migratory animals may accumulate reserves seasonally. Hibernating species shift dramatically between feeding and fasting. Humans exhibit more moderate cycles, shaped by both biology and culture. The sensation of hunger rises, falls, returns, a rhythm as old as metabolism itself. There is also the gentle inheritance of human eyelashes. Eyelashes are small, curved hairs along the eyelid margins. They help prevent debris from entering the eye and trigger protective blinking when touched. Hair follicles, as mentioned before, are ancient mammalian structures. Over time, different regions of the body adapted hair for varied functions: insulation, sensory input, protection. Eyelashes are specialized hairs. Their length and curvature are tuned to optimize airflow and reduce drying around the eye. Evolution did not invent eyelashes independently of the broader hair system. It modified follicle distribution and growth cycles in specific areas. Across mammals, eyelash presence and density vary. Camels, for example, have long lashes suited for dusty environments. Other species have shorter or less noticeable ones. The underlying biological machinery remains consistent. Your eyelashes move subtly when you blink. They rest quietly when your eyes are closed. Small guardians shaped by incremental change. There is the quiet continuity in the human sense of balance while walking. Walking appears simple, but it involves coordinated oscillation between falling and catching oneself. Each step shifts weight forward, requiring precise timing of muscle contractions. Central pattern generators in the spinal cord contribute to rhythmic movement. These neural circuits produce repetitive motor patterns without requiring conscious thought. Such circuits are deeply conserved among vertebrates. Even fish swimming or birds flapping wings rely on similar rhythmic generators. Evolution did not design walking as a brand new function. It adapted ancient locomotor circuits to new postures and limb arrangements. In humans, these circuits coordinate with balance systems and visual input. You do not calculate each step. Signals travel, muscles respond, weight transfers. Across species, gait patterns differ in detail, but share common neural logic. The quiet rhythm of walking reflects layered adaptation, falling forward, catching, again and again. There is also the steady story of human facial temperature changes during emotion. Blushing, for example, involves dilation of blood vessels in the face, often in response to social attention or embarrassment. The physiological mechanism, vascular dilation, is ancient. Blood vessels expand and contract for many reasons: heat regulation, injury response, stress. In blushing, the same vascular system responds to social cues processed in the brain. Evolution layered social meaning onto an existing circulatory response. The amygdala and other brain regions interpret context. Signals travel through autonomic pathways. Capillaries widen. Across species, visible flushing may not occur in the same way, especially in animals with fur or feathers. Yet, internal vascular responses to stress and social interaction are widespread. Humans, with relatively exposed facial skin, display these changes outwardly. The body uses old tools in new contexts, not perfectly controlled, simply expressive. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in the human capacity for adaptation to altitude. When humans ascend to high altitudes, oxygen levels decrease. The body responds gradually. Breathing rate increases. Over time, red blood cell production rises to enhance oxygen transport. Populations that have lived at high altitude for thousands of years show genetic adaptations influencing hemoglobin levels and oxygen utilization. These adaptations did not require entirely new proteins. They involved adjustments to existing regulatory pathways. Evolution fine-tuned oxygen response systems in specific environments. Across species, high-altitude adaptations appear repeatedly in birds that migrate over mountains, in mammals inhabiting plateaus. Convergent evolution shapes similar physiological strategies in unrelated lineages. Within humans, variation reflects both short-term acclimatization and long-term genetic shifts. The lungs expand, the heart adjusts, blood composition changes subtly, a layered response built upon ancient respiratory and circulatory frameworks. Across all these quiet processes, hunger rising, eyelashes guarding, steps repeating, faces flushing, bodies adjusting to thin air, the same gentle themes continue. Evolution modifies what already exists. It reuses pathways for new demands. It preserves feedback loops that function sufficiently. It tolerates variability across individuals and populations. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It sometimes arrives at similar solutions in distant branches of life. And through it all, the human body remains responsive, seeking food when needed, blinking away dust, stepping forward in quiet rhythm, coloring softly in social space, adapting to mountains or sea level, layered with time, sufficient, still changing, slowly, across generations yet to come. There is a quiet continuity in the way your body shivers. When you become cold, tiny muscle contractions begin beneath the skin. They are small, rapid, and often involuntary. These contractions generate heat through increased metabolic activity. The body is not trying to move you anywhere. It is simply trying to warm you. Shivering is not uniquely human. It appears across mammals and birds as a method of thermogenesis, long before clothing or shelter. Early warm-blooded animals relied on internal heat production to survive cooler temperatures. The muscles involved in shivering are the same muscles used for ordinary movement. Evolution did not design a separate heating organ. It repurposed skeletal muscle activity. When warmth returns, shivering fades. The system quiets again. Across species, different strategies supplement this response. Some animals grow seasonal fur, others migrate. Some reduce activity to conserve heat. Humans developed cultural tools, fire, woven fabric, insulated buildings layered atop biological responses. Yet the underlying reflex remains. A tremor for warmth, an ancient rhythm beneath the skin. There is also the gentle inheritance of human fingerprints before birth, long before you were born. The ridges on your fingertips began forming. They arise during fetal development as the skin grows at slightly different rates across tiny areas of the hand. Pressure from amniotic fluid and the curvature of the fingertip influence the patterns. The general presence of friction ridges is inherited from primate ancestors. The exact swirl or loop is shaped by small variations in growth. Evolution did not assign specific patterns for identification. It shaped textured skin because it improved grip and sensitivity. Across primates, similar ridges appear. Koalas, interestingly, also possess friction ridges that resemble human fingerprints, an example of convergent evolution producing similar surface patterns for grasping. The underlying developmental processes are ancient cell division, protein production, tissue folding. Each fingertip carries a pattern shaped by genetics and small environmental influences before birth. Unique, yet built from shared instructions. There is the quiet continuity in the human sense of rhythm in breathing during speech. When you speak, breath flows outward in controlled streams. The diaphragm adjusts pressure. Vocal cords vibrate. The tongue and lips shape sound. Breathing and speaking are intertwined. Yet breathing predates speech by hundreds of millions of years. Evolution did not create a separate respiratory system for language. It layered voluntary control onto an automatic breathing rhythm. This required subtle neural changes connections between cortical speech areas and brainstem respiratory centers. The original function remains primary oxygen exchange. Speech is an elaboration. Across species, vocalization and breathing are also connected. Birds coordinate airflow for song. Whales regulate breath during long dives. Different anatomies, similar integration. When you are silent, breath returns to its quiet baseline pattern. Inhale, exhale, an old rhythm supporting a newer one. There is also the steady story of human skin pigmentation adjusting over seasons. Exposure to sunlight stimulates melanocytes to produce more melanin, darkening the skin temporarily. This process protects underlying tissues from ultraviolet radiation. The ability to tan varies across individuals, reflecting genetic variation in melanin production. Long-term differences in baseline pigmentation arose gradually as human populations migrated into regions with differing sunlight intensity. Evolution adjusted melanin levels rather than inventing a new protective layer. The same pigment, in different concentrations, across mammals. Pigmentation varies widely for camouflage, signaling, or protection. The biochemical pathway that produces melanin is conserved, a shared molecular process, tuned differently. When sunlight touches skin, chemical signals begin. Pigment increases, then slowly fades. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in the way your body balances fluids. Water moves between cells, blood vessels, and tissues according to osmotic gradients. The kidneys regulate electrolyte levels and water retention. Hormones, such as antidiuretic hormone, adjust how much water is reabsorbed. This balancing act is ancient. Even early aquatic organisms had to regulate internal salt concentrations relative to their environment. As vertebrates transitioned to land, water conservation became more critical. Kidneys evolved structures capable of concentrating urine, reducing water loss. Evolution modified excretory systems rather than inventing entirely new ones for terrestrial life. Across species, kidney structure varies according to habitat. Desert animals concentrate urine efficiently. Aquatic species handle excess water differently. Humans occupy a middle range, capable of moderate flexibility. The sensation of thirst arises when fluid levels drop. Hormones signal the brain. Behavior follows. Drink, balance restored. Across all these quiet systems, shivering muscles, forming fingerprints, breathing through speech, tanning skin, balancing fluids, the same gentle themes continue to return. Evolution modifies existing structures. It layers new capacities onto old frameworks. It preserves what functions sufficiently. It allows variation within shared blueprints. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It sometimes finds similar solutions in distant branches of life. And through all of it, the human body remains quietly adaptive, warming itself, gripping softly, breathing and speaking, darkening under sunlight, maintaining balance within, layered with time, sufficient for this moment, continuing softly into the next. There is a quiet continuity in the way your body repairs small mistakes in DNA. Every time a cell divides, it copies its genetic material. This copying is remarkably accurate, but not flawless. Tiny errors can occur. To manage this, cells carry repair enzymes that scan DNA strands, detect mismatches, and correct them. These repair systems are ancient. Even simple bacteria possess mechanisms to fix damaged DNA. Over time, more complex organisms elaborated on these systems, adding layers of proofreading and correction. Evolution did not create a perfect copying process. It shaped one that is accurate enough, with repair pathways to maintain stability across generations. Some errors slip through. Most are neutral. A few are harmful. Very rarely. One provides a slight advantage that may spread slowly through a population. The balance between mutation and repair is part of evolution's rhythm. Without mutation, there would be no variation. Without repair, stability would collapse. Inside you, billions of cells are copying DNA and quietly correcting small mismatches. Not dramatic, just steady maintenance of inherited instructions. There is also the gentle inheritance of the human gag reflex. When the back of the throat is stimulated, muscles contract to prevent choking. This reflex protects the airway from obstruction. The neural pathway involved is shared across mammals. Protecting the airway is a fundamental requirement for organisms that breathe air and swallow food through intersecting passages. Evolution did not design a new protective system when the larynx descended in human ancestry. It modified coordination between swallowing and breathing, accepting some increased choking risk in exchange for expanded vocal capacity. The gag reflex remains as a safeguard. It activates quickly, then subsides. Across species, similar protective reflexes appear. They vary in sensitivity, but the core mechanism is consistent. The body prioritizes airway protection. Quietly, there is the steady story of human earwax. Earwax, or cerumen, is produced by glands in the ear canal. It traps dust and microorganisms, preventing them from reaching the eardrum. It also lubricates the canal. This secretion is not uniquely human. Many mammals produce protective substances in their ears. The chemical composition of earwax varies slightly among human populations due to genetic variation. Some people produce wetter cerumen, others produce drier forms. This variation likely reflects neutral drift or minor adaptive differences. Evolution did not invent earwax for modern hygiene. It shaped glandular secretions to maintain ear health in natural environments. The substance accumulates slowly and is expelled gradually. A small, steady defense, rarely noticed unless absent. There is also the quiet continuity in the human response to tickling. Tickling often elicits laughter or withdrawal. The exact evolutionary origin of ticklishness is not fully understood, but it may relate to protecting vulnerable body areas or reinforcing social bonds during play. The sensation arises from light touch, activating specific nerve endings. The unpredictability of the stimulus enhances the response. Other primates show similar reactions during play, including vocalizations resembling laughter. Evolution layered social meaning onto sensory pathways originally designed for touch detection. Ticklishness may encourage defensive reactions in sensitive regions such as the neck or abdomen. It may also signal trust when play occurs among familiar individuals. The nervous system integrates sensation and emotion, not as a separate invention, but as a refinement of existing circuits. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in the way your body forms habits. Habit formation involves neural pathways in the basal ganglia, structures deep within the brain that support routine behaviors. Repetition strengthens connections. Actions become more automatic over time. These brain regions are ancient, present in earlier vertebrates in simpler forms. They support learned sequences of movement and behavior. Evolution did not create a new brain system exclusively for complex human routines. It elaborated on circuits that once guided repetitive survival tasks, foraging routes, grooming behaviors, movement patterns. In humans, habits extend beyond physical actions to cognitive routines. The underlying principle remains: repeated activation strengthens pathways. Neurons that fire together wire together gradually. Across species, similar habit systems appear. Animals learn paths, schedules, responses. Humans build layered routines within cultural contexts. The brain adapts quietly to repetition. Across all these quiet systems, DNA, repair enzymes, scanning strands, reflexes guarding the throat, glands producing protective wax, nerves responding to tickle, circuits reinforcing habits. The same gentle themes continue. Evolution modifies what already exists. It preserves protective mechanisms. It tolerates small errors while correcting most. It layers social complexity onto sensory foundations. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It arrives at similar strategies across distant branches of life. And through it all, your body continues its quiet work, repairing, guarding, producing, responding, learning, layered with time, sufficient for this moment, still adapting in ways both subtle and slow. There is a quiet continuity in the way your body senses carbon dioxide. As you breathe, oxygen enters and carbon dioxide leaves. But the urge to breathe is driven less by falling oxygen and more by rising carbon dioxide. Specialized receptors in the brainstem and in blood vessels detect changes in carbon dioxide and pH. When levels rise, signals increase the rate and depth of breathing. This system is ancient. Early animals that relied on oxygen had to regulate internal chemistry carefully. Carbon dioxide dissolves in blood to form carbonic acid, altering pH. Even small shifts matter. Evolution did not invent a new breathing alarm for humans. It refined chemoreceptors that already monitored internal balance in earlier vertebrates. Across mammals, similar carbon dioxide sensitivity appears. The thresholds vary slightly, but the principle holds. You rarely notice this regulation unless you hold your breath. Then, the rising pressure to inhale becomes clear. Most of the time, it unfolds quietly. Breath adjusting to chemistry, a loop as old as air-breathing life. There is also the gentle inheritance of the human startle at sudden loss of support. If you stumble unexpectedly, your arms may extend automatically. This protective extension reflex appears in infants and persists into adulthood in modified form. The reflex likely traces back to early vertebrates reacting to sudden shifts in gravity or instability. Rapid extension of limbs can prevent injury during falls. Evolution did not design this reflex solely for modern environments. It layered automatic motor responses onto balance systems that developed as animals navigated uneven terrain. Across mammals, similar righting and extension reflexes appear. Cats twist midair to land on their feet. Primates grasp when falling. The neural circuits involved reside partly in the spinal cord and brainstem, operating faster than conscious thought. The body reacts first, then awareness follows. A brief flare of motion, then stillness again. There is the quiet continuity in the human sense of itch. Itch is a distinct sensation from pain, though related. Specialized nerve fibers respond to certain chemical signals, such as histamine released during irritation. Scratching provides temporary relief by activating pain pathways that override itch signals. The itch response likely evolved as a defense against parasites and irritants on the skin. Removing insects or debris improves survival. Evolution did not create itch as discomfort for its own sake. It shaped a signal to prompt action. Across mammals, scratching behaviors appear frequently. Grooming is common among primates, both for hygiene and social bonding. The same nerve pathways that detect light touch and pain are involved in itch, adjusted in sensitivity. When the stimulus fades, the sensation fades. A brief message from the skin. There is also the steady story of human circadian variation in body temperature. Your body temperature fluctuates slightly over the course of a day. It tends to be lower in the early morning and higher in the late afternoon. This rhythm is coordinated by the brain's internal clock and influenced by light exposure. Circadian regulation is ancient. Even single-celled organisms exhibit daily cycles in activity. As life evolved under consistent day-night patterns, internal clocks became advantageous. In mammals, these rhythms coordinate hormone release, metabolism, alertness, and temperature. Evolution did not invent daily variation for humans specifically. It refined a system synchronized with Earth's rotation. Across species, circadian patterns differ according to activity schedules: nocturnal, diurnal, crepuscular. Humans are generally diurnal, though flexibility exists. Your internal temperature shifts subtly, even if you do not notice. A daily tide within. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in the way your body forms memories of movement. When you learn a new physical skill, riding a bicycle, typing, playing an instrument, the brain and muscles coordinate repeatedly until the sequence becomes fluid. This process involves changes in synaptic strength and in motor cortex representation. Over time, movements require less conscious oversight. The neural plasticity underlying motor learning is ancient. Animals learn movement patterns essential for survival hunting techniques. Escape maneuvers. Evolution did not design a separate learning system for cultural skills. It adapted neural plasticity for diverse uses. Procedural memory allows actions to become automatic, freeing attention for other tasks. Across species, motor learning appears widely. Birds learn flight patterns. Mammals refine locomotion. In humans, this capacity expands into complex crafts and arts. Yet the underlying mechanism remains shared. Repetition strengthens connections. Across all these quiet processes, carbon dioxide sensing, protective reflexes, itching skin, daily temperature shifts, practiced movement, familiar themes continue to return. Evolution modifies existing systems. It preserves regulatory loops that maintain balance. It layers new behaviors onto ancient circuits. It tolerates discomfort when it serves protection. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It produces similar strategies across distant branches of life. And through all of it, your body continues calmly, breathing in response to chemistry, extending arms when balance falters, scratching away irritation, warming and cooling with the sun, learning movements through repetition, layered with time, sufficient, steady in this quiet moment. There is a quiet continuity in the way your body responds to gentle touch. Light touch activates specialized receptors just beneath the skin. Some of these receptors respond quickly, detecting vibration or texture. Others respond more slowly, registering sustained contact. A particular set of nerve fibers, sometimes called C-tactile fibers, seem especially tuned to slow, gentle stroking. These pathways are not uniquely human. Mammals groom one another. They rest in contact. Touch carries information about safety and affiliation. Evolution did not invent a new sense for comfort. It refined sensory channels that were already present for detecting pressure and movement. Over time, certain types of touch became linked to emotional regulation. Signals travel from the skin to regions of the brain involved in mood and bonding. Across species, grooming behaviors reduce tension and reinforce social ties. In primates, social grooming plays a central role in group cohesion. The neural circuits are ancient. The emotional layers are elaborations. When fabric brushes your skin, or a hand rests lightly against yours, signals rise and fall quietly. No effort required, just contact. There is also the gentle inheritance of the human hiccup. A hiccup involves sudden contraction of the diaphragm, followed by rapid closure of the vocal cords. The sound that results is brief and involuntary. The exact evolutionary origin of hiccups remains debated. Some researchers suggest they may reflect ancient neural patterns associated with early amphibian ancestors that used a similar motor sequence for gulping air and water. Whether or not that specific pathway is accurate, the hiccup clearly involves coordinated respiratory and vocal structures that predate humans. Evolution did not create a hiccup reflex intentionally. It preserved neural circuits for breathing and swallowing that occasionally misfire. The reflex is usually harmless. It appears, persists for a short time, and resolves. Across mammals, hiccup-like contractions can occur, though they are less commonly observed. The diaphragm contracts, the glottis closes, then stillness returns. A small glitch in an old system. There is the quiet continuity in the structure of your teeth enamel. Enamel is the hardest substance in the human body. It protects teeth from wear and decay. It is produced by specialized cells during development and does not regenerate once fully formed. The basic structure of enamel evolved early in vertebrate history. Primitive tooth-like structures appeared in ancient fish. Over time, mineralized tissues became more complex. Evolution did not invent enamel for humans. It refined a mineralized coating that proved useful for processing food. Across mammals, enamel thickness varies according to diet. Species that consume tough vegetation often have thicker enamel. Carnivores may have different wear patterns. Human enamel reflects an omnivorous ancestry, balancing durability and versatility. Once formed, enamel remains as a lasting record of development. It does not repair itself easily. A protective layer shaped long before modern dentistry. There is also the steady story of human tears that lubricate the eyes. Beyond emotional tears, basal tears are produced continuously to maintain a smooth optical surface. They contain water, oils, and antimicrobial proteins. The glands that produce tears evolved as part of broader glandular systems in early terrestrial vertebrates. Protecting the eye from drying became essential outside aquatic environments. Evolution layered tear production onto existing glandular tissues rather than creating a new structure from scratch. Across mammals, tear composition varies slightly, but the fundamental function remains. When you blink, tears spread evenly. When the eye becomes irritated, production increases, a clear film renewed again and again. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in the human tendency to yawn when tired. Yawning often appears at transitions between wakefulness and sleep. It may involve shifts in brain temperature, oxygen levels, or arousal states. Its exact purpose remains uncertain. Yet yawning appears across many vertebrates. It is not a uniquely human act. The motor sequence jaw, stretching, deep inhalation. Brief pause relies on muscles and respiratory systems shaped for other primary functions. Evolution did not design yawning for social settings or boredom. It preserved neural patterns that accompany changes in alertness. Sometimes yawns spread through groups, perhaps reflecting shared rhythms. The act is simple. Open, inhale, pause, release. Across all these quiet processes, gentle touch, brief hiccups, hardened enamel, flowing tears, wide yawns. Familiar themes continue softly. Evolution modifies what already exists. It preserves ancient circuits even when they misfire. It layers emotional meaning onto sensory foundations. It shapes durable structures from mineral and protein. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It finds similar patterns in distant branches of life. And through all of it, your body continues in small, steady cycles, feeling contact, resetting breath, protecting surfaces, stretching wide for a moment, layered with time, sufficient, calmly ongoing. Whether you notice or drift, there is a quiet continuity in the way your body produces goosebumps when you feel cold, or sometimes when you feel strong emotion. Tiny muscles at the base of hair, follicles contract, the hairs lift slightly, the skin forms small raised bumps. In animals with thick fur, this response traps more air close to the body, increasing insulation. It can also make the animal appear larger during confrontation. In humans, the visible effect is modest. Our body hair is relatively sparse. The insulating benefit is minimal, yet the mechanism remains. Evolution did not remove the tiny erector pili muscles simply because their function diminished. They persist because they do not interfere significantly with survival. The neural pathway that triggers goosebumps is linked to the autonomic nervous system, the same system that regulates heart rate and sweating. Across mammals, this piloerection response appears widely. An old reflex, still present, a small ripple across the skin. There is also the gentle inheritance of the human sense of sweetness. Sweet taste receptors detect sugars, signaling energy-rich food. The genes that encode these receptors are conserved across many mammals. Detecting carbohydrates provided clear survival advantages in environments where energy sources were unpredictable. Evolution did not invent sweetness for pleasure. It shaped a chemical recognition system that encouraged consumption of calorie-dense foods. In some carnivorous species, sweet receptors have become non-functional. Their diets did not require them. In humans, sweet sensitivity varies slightly among individuals, reflecting genetic differences. The underlying molecular structure remains similar across mammals. A receptor binds a sugar molecule. A signal travels to the brain. Pleasure follows. An ancient encouragement to eat. There is the quiet continuity in the structure of your eyelashes. Each eyelash grows in a cycle growth phase, rest phase, shedding phase. The follicles are small but active, producing keratin in a steady rhythm. Hair growth cycles are not unique to eyelashes. They occur across the body and across mammals. Evolution did not create a new hair system for eyelids. It modified existing follicles to produce shorter, curved hairs that protect the eye. Across species, lash length and density vary according to environment. Desert animals often have longer lashes to shield against sand. The follicle structure is conserved. Cells divide. Keratin accumulates. A lash grows, rests, falls, replaced quietly. There is also the steady story of human reflexes in the knee. When a doctor taps just below the kneecap, the lower leg kicks outward. This patellar reflex involves a simple neural circuit. A stretch receptor in the quadriceps muscle detects the tap, sends a signal to the spinal cord, and returns a signal to contract. The pathway bypasses the brain for speed. Such reflex arcs are ancient among vertebrates. Quick adjustments to muscle stretch help maintain posture and balance. Evolution did not create complex conscious control for every movement. It preserved fast, local circuits for efficiency. Across mammals, similar reflexes stabilize limbs during movement. The knee jerk is a small example of a broader pattern, rapid correction without deliberation. Signal in, signal out, motion, then stillness. And finally, there is the quiet continuity in the way your body produces oil on the skin. Sebaceous glands secrete sebum, an oily substance that lubricates skin and hair. It helps maintain moisture and provides a mild barrier against microbes. These glands are part of the broader system of skin appendages that evolved as vertebrates adapted to life on land. Dry air requires protective coatings. Sebum contributes to that protection. Evolution did not invent sebum for cosmetic reasons. It shaped glandular secretions to maintain tissue integrity. Across mammals, sebaceous glands vary in density and activity. Fur-bearing animals distribute oil along hair shafts during grooming. Humans retain active glands, particularly on the face and scalp. Production fluctuates with hormones, age, and environment. The oil spreads thinly, invisible most of the time. Across all these quiet processes, goosebumps rising, sweetness detected, lashes cycling, knees responding, skin oiling the same gentle themes return. Evolution modifies existing structures. It preserves reflexes even when their function diminishes. It layers pleasure onto survival signals. It reuses follicles and glands for new contexts. It proceeds gradually, often unevenly. It finds similar solutions in distant branches of life. And through it all, your body continues its soft maintenance, responding to cold, sensing sugar, growing and shedding, correcting posture, lubricating surfaces, layered with time. sufficient, calmly present, whether you are fully awake or drifting gently toward sleep. We've been moving slowly through layers of time, through muscles that still tremble softly beneath the skin, through bones that remember older shapes, through lungs that branch like ancient trees, through reflexes that arrive before thought. None of it needed to be held tightly. These are not lessons to memorize. They are simply quiet observations about how much history can exist inside a single human body. Evolution does not rush. It does not erase cleanly. It modifies. It repurposes. It keeps what works well enough. It allows remnants to remain. It accepts trade-offs. It proceeds in small steps across immense spans of time, and you are part of that continuity. The spine resting now carries an aquatic memory. The hands lying still were shaped in trees. The lungs that rise and fall began as sacs in ancient water. The heart that beats steadily refined itself, chamber by chamber, across generations too numerous to imagine. Nothing here needed perfection, only sufficiency, only persistence. If your attention drifted at times, that's natural. Minds wander the way evolution wanders, not in straight lines, but in branching paths. If you missed details, nothing was lost. The body continues whether or not it is being described. Right now, there is simply breath, air entering, air leaving, a rhythm that predates language. Your muscles may be heavier now, or perhaps you are still fully awake. Both are welcome. You do not owe this moment anything. You do not owe understanding. You do not owe focus. The long story of human evolution unfolds quietly inside you, regardless. Cells repair. Blood circulates. Nerves signal and settle. The old blueprints remain, gently revised, still in use. And outside of you, the larger process continues as well. Subtle genetic variations arise, small differences accumulate, environments shift slowly, change continues, often unevenly, rarely dramatic on the scale of a single lifetime. Perhaps that is enough. If sleep is close, you can let it arrive without effort. The body already knows how to descend into it. The ancient systems that regulate rest will take over gently. If you remain awake, that is fine too. You can simply rest in the quiet awareness that you are a layered being, shaped by time, carrying echoes of water, forest, grassland, and sky. Thank you for spending this slow stretch of time here. However, you leave this moment into sleep, into thought, or into the next quiet part of your evening, you can go gently. There is nothing more to hold, just breath and the steady, sufficient body that carries you forward.